So I open the list.
Sitten
So we will have
ne kysymykset.
the questions here in front of me.
En löydä, joten kysyn.
Actually, I can't actually find them, so I'll ask the Secretary General
On ensimmäinen kysyjä.
if they could supply me with things.
Tietäisikö hallituksen
The chair of the board who has had the questions, maybe Jessica knows, yes.
Kyselytunnista hommat.
So Jessica, please take the reins. Awesome. Kind of a Chinese whispers. So,
Kysymyksen Tommi.
we could have a first question. Tommi from HYL, are you present?
Hello.
Hello.
Ilmeisesti.
Hello everyone. Seemingly you can hear me.
Joo.
So,
Mutta kysymys siis kuuluu.
the question is as follows. Dear Board and Representative Council,
Tavoiteohjelmaan
whose program of objectives on the medium-term financial plan and the budget, we have the focus for the facilities plan should start in Viki at the start of this year. On this, who has been behind of schedule, and the HYL problem is that how the mapping will be ensured that it happens on time. The first question is how the mapping has been prepared at the start of the year, what kind of timetable do we have, and how will it be implemented. Budget has 6,000 euros for an outside consultant. This, however, does not show on the budget document on whose website. The second question is that has there been plans for an outside consultant, and how is their role perceived? Thank you.
Kiitos paljon, Tommi.
Thank you, Tommi.
Mä vastaan tähän valitettavasti hallituksen järjestä vastaava Janne ei nyt päässyt.
I will answer this.
Mutta Jaakko ja Janne on tätä kysymystä.
Jaakko and Janne have been preparing this question.
Totean heti alkuun, että
I state to start with that the web page budget document has been updated and it should contain this item. It has been dropped out for some reason, but it's there now. Thank you for your observational skills. Jaakko Kalske, our association expert, has been on leave, and Miran has been the substitute. And Miran didn't have the time to start this mapping process at the start of the year due to timetable constraints, and we saw it more prudent that Miran will not start the process at all right before Jaakko comes back, but rather do it properly with one individual doing it from start to finish, this being Jaakko. So we waited for Jaakko's return. Now Jaakko is back and we can start the process. It is at the very start. It's the very beginning steps. We have discussed with the Viki campus organizations, asked about the facility needs. These wishes we'll be gathering them during the summer. We'll have a more detailed discussion with the organizations during the summer. Also, as our financial plan is doing, we'll be doing the mapping. So this is in line with the requirement. We're also having discussions with our own subject organization, or their subject organizations, regarding facilities at the Viki campus. And as a board, we support this project wholeheartedly, and we have a very positive response rate. We'll see how it progresses, and we'll aim to develop getting facilities for the Viki people. This does not solve the Viki facilities question for all organizations, but has a major impact on the need of facilities as a whole. MYL and the other subject organization will be discussing it on the 8th of June, and that will affect the starting positions of the mapping that who will undertake.
Tuosta ulkopuolisen konsultin palkkaamisesta.
On the outside consultant hiring, we have the 6,000 euro marked for that. Currently, it's unclear what kind of consultations we can buy with that kind of money. It was also not clear on the specifics, that is.
Ja varmasti jonkinlaista konsultaatiota tarvitaan.
And some kind of consultation will be needed. We'll have some sort of consultation first, and then we'll have the more prudent decisions. So these kinds of updates on facilities.
Kiitos Tommi vielä kysymyksestä.
Thank you for the question once again.
Hyvä.
Joo, ja kiitos. Ja varmaan sitten syksyllä.
And thank you, and hopefully in the fall we will get back to it.
Annetaan tästä heti lisätietoa, kun on
We'll give information when we have information to give. Other question that we have received beforehand was from Samuli from HYL.
Joo, hallo ja tahallaan vaan.
Hello, hello, dear representative council and other attendees.
Mulla olisi kysymys.
I would have a question pertaining to
yliopiston juuri käyttöön ottamaan
the university's SISU system and its accessibility issues. Helsingin Sanomat did a news piece a few weeks back regarding this SISU system. There's very, very clear accessibility problems which have been up. And about when other universities have started using SISU. Despite these, the university has just gone with SISU, and which is why I would like to ask the following questions. First of which, has who been knowledgeable of these accessibility issues beforehand? If so, how are you aim to address these issues before the system is implemented? Secondly, how will WHO raise concerns over the deficiencies of the system with the university and affect the university so that it would rectify these mistakes and as fast as possible? As a third question is that did WHO know that, does WHO know if the university knew of the problems when the decision to implement was made? Meaning, is this decision, has this been made actively that we have just brushed these problems aside? Thank you for the answers beforehand already in advance. And for this, we will have Aleksi answering.
Moikka. Ja
hello, dear representative council, dear attendees. Thank you for Samuli for the questions on SISU. I'll be answering on behalf of the WHO educational policy sector. First of some background, SISU was developed or started development in 2013 when these accessibility requirements were not in place. So the accessibility was actually something that was dropped out of the wagon early on. Also, implementation decisions were made before these problems were recognized as a problem. The university has made corrections, and corrections will be implemented in the future. The SISU system should be accessibility by 20 something. The interpreter didn't hear, was it 33, 23 or 30? I'm sure on the last year's board, but this year's board, we have known of these issues, and we have had meetings with the university, and we've discussed accessibility with the university. To come with the second issue, what WHO has done to advocate. In this current situation, we have placed weight on the fact that individual requirements should be taken note of and supported, and the university has messaged that they will develop assistance for people facing accessibility issues. You will also, in its upcoming meetings, for example with the SISU work group, monitor and keep this theme out and about, especially once that we can kind of, due to the coronavirus pandemic, is that we will keep this on the table. On the third question, according to our evaluation, the university did not know of the accessibility issues because they did not exist when the decision was made. because these requirements were not in place back then.
Voisi ehkä todeta, että
I could also say that
olisi voinut jo aiemmin sitä
the
miettiä.
Helsinki University could have maybe think of it on their own. But please ask more information from the Kopo sector, especially our educational policy expert Marianna, who will be
Kiitos paljon.
help in preparing the questions. Thank you.
Yes, kiitos paljon vastauksesta.
Thank you for the answers.
Nopeasti vaan
I'd like to quickly comment that this accessibility direction,
siirtymäaika nimenomaan sitä varten, että järjestelmät, jotka ei
we should have this long-term carryover plan that we can prepare for this. But thank you for the answer.
Sitten oli semmoinen, niin Teemu Kovasella oli puheenvuoropyyntö.
Teemu Koponen has another request for other items. Is it really on the agenda, other items, or is it something that has to pertain with the question hour, which is taking place right now? Is Teemu Koponen here?
Joten
Seems like no, so we will assume that Teemu
puhuu sitten kokouksen
will be speaking at the end of the meeting, the other items item. Jessica, do you have any other questions? I do not have any knowledge of any other questions.
Toistaiseksi, ellei joku halua
So
nyt
far, no. If some, does anybody have a question?
puheenvuoroa, niin ole
We
hyvä.
have a request from Mikko Karhunen.
Joo, kiitoksia arvoisa puheenjohtaja.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good evening, or actually good afternoon to all the members and people present. If I understood that the Ylva CEO here is today,
Tällä kyselytunnilla ja
if I understood correctly,
ensin on sanottava,
and I think that I have to say that I think it's very wonderful that
paikalla, että
you are here today. We value your presence, that the Representative Council has the opportunity to ask questions and receive answers. Also, it's wonderful to have the CEO here at the RepCo meeting. Thank you for your work you do in Ylva, that Ylva turns a profit. It's very important because the
hyväksi, se on eri.
profit that you turn goes for the benefit of the students. Thank you for your work.
Hetki sitten
We had discussion in the Helsingin Sanomat and on the Facebook group.
Facebook-ryhmässä tiedotettiin, että
And,
Ylva ei vielä ole tehnyt sellaista päätöstä, jonka
We
seurauksena
discussed that we have not undertaken a decision
vuoteen 2025
that we could reach the 2025 goal. It looks like it might be hard. So based on this is very important. I'm very satisfied
ollaan yhteisessä tavoitteessa.
that we have a goal.
Facebook-ryhmässä puhuttiin, että tällä hetkellä tämän
Also, the Facebook group discussed that this is
pystymme ennustamaan tämän paremmin sitten
challenging to do, and we can maybe get this done during the summer. We'll anxiously anticipate the situation of future if kind of
siinä mielessä, että
the environmental goal was a Cooper's test,
10 kilsaa tai 42 kilsaa, mutta
like we talk about
tässä on
10 kilometers or 42 kilometers. We have kind of a timetable in terms of time and distance. And we will strive towards the results and see how far we get.
On tärkeää seurata Ylvaa. Toisaalta on tärkeää myös
We're
seurata
talking about the
ja edustajiston tahtotilaa, sillä edustajista viime
membership fees.
jäsenmaksu
Interpreter will have to excuse themselves. But when we are discussing the membership free base,
kaikki edustajistoryhmät ratsasti vaaleihin
all
teemalla, että vuonna
groups
2025
discussing that during 2025 we should have this goal for a membership free student union, and we had this goal presented into the budget program. That it said that we will implement this measure by getting more money from Ylva.
Ja nyt, arvoisa puheenjohtaja, tätä tarkoittaa,
And now
siis 3 vuoden päästä valmistellaan budjettia, jossa jäsenmaksuttomuus olisi.
we are preparing a budget where in 3 years we should have a membership fee.
Koronakriisi ja Ylvan projektit on nyt niin kuin erittäin kriittisessä vaiheessa ja kesän jälkeen saadaan
We are in a critical situation.
Ensinnäkin haluan siis kiittää.
I want to thank Ylva CEO in that you are here answering these questions, and I'd like to present that I am very anticipating information after the summer. And thirdly, I would note that Ylva will take note of the Representative Council's wishes on 2025 that we would have a question that we will have a membership fee free student union. Hopefully you will be ready.
Varsinaisesti ole sen suurempaa kysymystä, mutta
I don't have a question here,
tietoa, että mitenkä näitä
but
tietoja sitten edustajistolle annetaan kesän jälkeen. Jos
is there information on what information we will receive after the summer?
Tässä vaiheessa mä annan ehkä Samille vielä nopeasti puheenvuoroja ja sen jälkeen sitten voidaan siirtyä tosiaan kysymyksiin.
Maybe have a request to the floor, then I'll have Lea next and your rebuttals and comments, but first Sami. Thank you, Chairperson, for this list and the message. I would like a clarification. To my knowledge, the fact that an expense is approved in the budget.
Olisin vain tiedostellut tähän vastaukseen liittyen, että eikö tämän hankinnan sääntöjen mukaisuus ole nimenomaan
I think that is it the legality of this purchase dependent on approval of the budget, because in other cases it is an overture in the budget. I would like to get a clarification for this answer.
Palataan tähän asiakohtaan.
We will return this in the meeting proper. We have 14 minutes.
Tähän Ylva-kysymykseen, mutta palataan
regarding this Ylva question, but
kun käsitellään tätä koko.
We will be discussing this package.
Jos sopii, niin ole hyvä, Lea.
Moikka moi, hei ihana.
Hello, wonderful to be here, dear representative council and other participants. I will be here and will be more than happy to answer all questions today and in the future. We have a lot that has happened. And I've had like a honeymoon period, almost my 100 days full. So kind of quite the speed out of a pandemic start. Lots of things. But our daily work in Ylva has not changed. We are building the Helsinki of tomorrow. We are doing through responsible tasks with our goals, which is in decision making, and indeed the fall will be when we can actually assess how they are progressing. As a quick recap, I thought I'd tell that we can actually forward with Grand Hansan, we can actually publish that the project is wonderful. We have 14,000 square meters of hotel. We can combine our old valuable targets to its real use, hotels that is. But here the decision making has progressed so that we had the big picture finally to the goal. We had the coronavirus, it caused complications, but now we had some complications regarding the loans, but our austerity is there on the baseline. But this loan progress has been now signed and Skanska is on board. So in Grand Hansa we are in the implementation stage. Thank you for all people in the office that we actually managed to get this after tens of thousands of hours. We have started kind of the getting things rolling and moving on to the next step. In Lyra, we are still larger things. Hopefully during June, we have the big pit. Preparation works are undertaking and the metro hall, but the facade purchase is something that we should do for the fall. Large decisions in the Lyra. And on the restaurant side that we have had lots of challenges on the entire restaurant business. We will be working with Mara on advocacies that we can actually get the assistances regarding costs. And it's kind of regrettable that if we have, of course, our restaurants have taken a hit and the restaurant side is really on the minus side because we haven't had only Kaivopiha open. Now we have Meilahti and Chemicum open, and during the fall we will be aiming to open other parts. Still kind of happy news that we can actually have Kela's approval that we can continue takeaway sales until the end of the fall. Lots of advocacy has been undertaken. We can sell stuff out until the end of December. Large plans abroad for fall. So this is for restaurants. We wanted to do the Helsinki of the day after tomorrow. So where are we right now is that we are progressing these plans to the implementation stage. And of course, now that the timetables need to be locked in during the spring and in the fall, we will be implementing things. Our message is that we will do what is promised, and the mode will be something that will get it rolling. And like was mentioned, that even the Helsingin Sanomat was commenting on that. What is this? Their university communications willingness, or in addition to that, they wanted to write on what are the news regarding HYY and Ylva. And the fact is that the restaurant business has been hit heavily by the coronavirus. We need to take a look at where we are in the fall in regards of our goals for our membership fee student union. We can reach it through many different means. We haven't evaluated them yet. We are doing what is promised and doing all the work that we can actually get forward with our targets to get into the situation where we can evaluate things in the fall. Is 24/5 plausible? If it is not due to coronavirus, what will we do? How can we progress to the goals? We haven't made any decisions past the cornerstones. But this as a short recap on how is Ylva doing. Large things, lots of speed, and hopefully we will be meeting face to face with all of you in the fall. But I'll be here to answer all of your questions if you have any questions. Thank you on my behalf and all of us.
Kiitos vaan. Lea, onko nyt kysymyksiä?
Thank you. Any questions for Lea at this point?
Lealle nyt on hyvä hetki puhua.
It's a good situation to talk about the consortium, because we are consortium expert. Lea is here.
Keskustelemassa. Ja mun mielestä oli erittäin hyvä.
I think it was a good and concise presentation, and I value that we are discussing things on an understandable level. But now you have an opportunity. Please raise your hand or write on chat if you want the request for floor. We will do a silent moment in anticipation. Well, I will ask a question myself, more as pertaining to you and Ylva's business, but people can maybe think of questions in the meanwhile. What has been the most surprising thing into Ylva's business? Commitment, definitely. Here we have work that truly has an impact, which is seen in both restaurants. We've had layoffs, but not a lot of terminations. So even our restaurant people want to return to Ylva to work. I'm very positively surprised. And our real estate people, because this is kind of a business where we have these faceless hedge funds, are some one and another, but the motivation which comes through the fact that our work actually enables your student life for the next 150 years. It motivates, it keeps people busy, and I'm not saying that in terms of working hours, but we want to do things that make a difference. So it's been really a joy to be a part of all of this. That's nice to hear. It kind of follows with my own experiences of Ylva's activities. other questions have not been presented, I will encourage people that you should
on tietenkin
ask questions.
Tulevaisuudessakin sekä pyydettäessä, mutta muutenkin
And
käsittelemään erinäisiä asioita edariin, että ei tämä nyt mitenkään
we will be
tilaisuus ole, mutta
presenting things is not the last opportunity, but it is a good opportunity to ask questions.
no ehkä mä päästän kaikki piinasta, ja jos nyt ei ole erityisesti...
Okay, I'll let you all off the hook. If you have any questions, we can then let Lea continue on her way and have a 5-minute break before the start of the meeting.
Kiitos paljon Lea, ja nähdään.
Thank you, Lea. The meeting will continue in 5 minutes.
Ja tosiaan aloitetaan kokous.
And that we will continue the meeting in 4 minutes. You'll have a short break in the between.
Edustajiston kokous alkaa.
Starting the representative
council meeting begins. Esityslista on ollut nähtävänä ylioppilaskunnan virallisella ilmoitustaululla 24.
The agenda has been available starting the 4th of May for each representative. Also, the meeting invitation has been sent.
24 maj. Samma dag har också mötesannonser skickats per post till alla delegationsmedlemmar. The agenda has been available on the Student Union's official notice board from the 24th of May onwards. In addition, the meeting invitation has been delivered to each representative on the above-mentioned date. Kokouksessa käsiteltävät asiat oli annettu yliopiston rehtorille, eikä hän ole tehnyt kokouksen käsiteltäväksi kirjallista huomautusta siitä, että jokin esille tuleva asia ei soveltuisi ylioppilaskunnan tarkoituksiin. Universitetets rektor har blivit informerad om de ärenden som ska behandlas på mötet och han har inte gjort någon skriftlig anmärkning till mötet om att något av ärenden som ska behandlas inte skulle motsvara studentkårens syften. The rector of the university has been informed about the matters on the agenda, and he has not delivered a written comment to the meeting that a certain emerging matter would not be suitable for the purposes of the student union. Katson kokouksen laillisesti koolle kutsutuksi ja konstaterar att mötet är lagligt sammankallat. I consider that the meeting is convened in accordance with the regulations. Edustajisten kokoonpanoon on ollut seuraavia muutoksia. Följande anmälningar om förändringar i delegationens sammansättning har gjorts. The following changes have been reported to the composition of the representative council. Näkyy tuossa rulla. Avaan keskustelun, diskussion, I open the discussion. Päätän keskustelun, diskussionen avslutas, I close the discussion. Vapautukset ja erot myönnetty. Sorry, löin väärän hetken. Befrielserna avskeden beviljas, exceptions and resignations granted. Tässä kokouksessa närvarande på detta möte är present in this meeting are. Siirrytään nimenhuutoon. Pyydän pääsihteeriä suorittamaan nimenhuudon ja ber generalsekreteraren förrätta ett namnbrott. I request the Secretary General to perform the roll call.
Kiitos puheenjohtaja. Kun kuulette oman nimenne, niin ilmaistaan olevanne läsnä.
Now the roll call. When you hear your own name, express that you are present.
Paikalla.
Algren Hilda.
Paikalla.
Alinu Zahra. Alinu Zahra. Saapuu ehkä myöhemmin tai poissa. Andersson Emilia.
Paikalla.
Bossas Janina.
Närvarande.
Pelman Aslak.
Närvarande.
Granström Samsa. Granström Samsa.
Paikalla.
Jos Haapalainen Joonatan.
Paikalla.
Haapamäki Siru.
Paikalla.
Haaslahti Ellen.
Paikalla.
Hakala Nea.
Paikalla ollaan.
Asselpulatta Lukas.
Närvarande.
Pasunen Sami.
Herra pääsihteeri.
Jos Hatakka Lauri.
Paikalla.
Hiltunen Titta.
Paikalla.
Hippäläinen Antti.
Paikalla.
Outtu Aku.
Paikalla.
Itkonen Laura.
Paikalla.
Kanervo Mikko.
Paikalla.
Karhunen Mikko.
Paikalla.
Kasongo Jenny.
Paikalla.
Katajisto Mila.
Paikalla.
Keskivari Kim.
Paikalla.
Kokko Riikka.
Paikalla.
Koskijoki Kreeta.
Paikalla.
Kovanen Teemu.
Närvarande.
Kyllönen Riku-Petteri.
Paikalla.
Lahtiharju Arttu.
Paikalla.
Lamberi Benjamin.
Paikalla.
Lehtisaari Justus.
Paikalla.
Leikoski Lotta.
Paikalla.
Lemström Anna.
Paikalla.
Linkola Maija.
Paikalla.
Lipienen Helmi.
Paikalla.
Mattila Saku.
Paikalla.
Melander Etta.
Paikalla.
Mikko Iina.
Närvarande.
Naalisvar Sonja.
Paikalla.
Nevanen Veera.
Paikalla.
Niiranen Minna.
Paikalla.
Niskala Iiro.
Paikalla.
Nurminen Sammy.
Närvarande.
Nyman Onni.
Paikalla.
Ostrovski Tommi.
Paikalla.
Partanen Linnea.
Paikalla.
Peltonen Hekma.
Paikalla.
Pietilä Alexander.
Paikalla.
Piipponen Iida.
Paikalla.
Pirttijärvi Heta.
Paikalla.
Osa Matias.
Estynyt.
Estynyt. Sä olit poissa. Pulliainen Joonas.
Paikalla.
Puumainen Julia.
Paikalla.
Saari Ville-Veikko.
Paikalla.
Salainen Lauri.
Läsnä.
Serkilahti Iiris.
Paikalla.
Tammekan Samuel.
Paikalla.
Tolonen Joonas.
Närvarande.
Vandermeuren Eugenie.
Present.
Välitorha Venla.
Paikalla.
Ja Westermark Emilia. Emmi.
Närvarande.
Yes. Arvoisa puheenjohtaja, läsnä on 58 edustajaa ja poissa 2 edustajaa. Ärade ordförande, 58 delegationsmedlemmar är närvarande och 2 delegationsmedlemmar är frånvarande. Honorable Chairperson, 58 representatives are present and 2 representatives are absent.
Totean kokouksen päätös valtaiseksi, koska paikalla on yli 30 edustajiston jäsentä ja konstaterar att mötet är beslut för eftersom mer än 30 delegationsmedlemmar är närvarande. I declare a quorum as over 30 representative council members are present. Läsnäolo-oikeuksien myöntäminen. Onko tarpeen myöntää läsnäolo-oikeuksia?
Talousjohtajalla on automaattisesti,
exceptions for present. We have chairpersons from the Ylva board.
Ei ole Jenni. Lähetti kovasti terveisiänsä.
No, Jenny couldn't make it, but she sends her regards. Okay, well then we don't have any need for exemptions. I am inviting Sami and Emmi to be the scrutinizers of the minutes, if that's okay with you. Yeah, can do it. Doable.
Näin tehdään.
Okay.
Edustajille jaettu esityslista on seuraava.
The agenda is as follows.
Delegationsmedlemmarna ser ut så här. The agenda delivered to represent council members is as follows. Avaan keskustelun esityslistasta. Diskussion om föredragningslistan. I open the discussion on the agenda. Päätän keskustelun. Diskussion avslutas. I close the discussion. Esityslista hyväksytty. Föredragningslistan godkänns. The agenda is approved. Siirrytään käsittelemään esityslistan asioita.
Moving on to the agenda.
We proceed to address items on the agenda. Ensimmäinen kohta.
Item 1. Supplementation of the preparatory committee and the central selection committee.
Katsotaanpas. Onko
Let's have a look. We have any requests for the floor for us?
Ei olla.
No.
Kuikatkaa nopeasti, jos ei ole.
If somebody needs the floor and we haven't received your request, just let me know.
On niin, että ei ole semmoiselle tarvetta, niin sitten.
If there's no need for such, then we will move on.
Kohtaan 2.
Item 2.
Ehkä ennen kohtaa 2, kun aletaan käsittelemään näitä asioita, niin sanon nyt muutaman sanan.
Actually, before we move on to the item 2, let me say a few words about the meeting.
Ehkä erityisesti itselleni,
especially for me, what I want to point out. Let's try and speak clearly so that the interpreters can do their job as well as possible. It's especially difficult for me because I have a mumbling voice and I speak quickly, but I will try and do my best. And I hope you others to do the same.
Edustajistossa on ollut paljon
In the representative council, there has been a lot of discussion about judicial grounds of different items. It is a valuable discussion. Especially, it's important that you give your own expertise from your education and from your life experience and life skills. And it's a valuable asset for the representative council. We have done a lot of good work for accessibility. I remember, for example, when we've had discussion about the difficult terminology for equality that we were talking about approximately 1 year ago. I feel that in that regard we have made improvements. Each representative is responsible to listen to one another in an understanding fashion, but also we are responsible for expressing ourselves in a way that is to understand for each representative, regardless of their background. So for that reason, I hope that we could talk as much as possible in a way that facilitates the understanding of others and also to remember the political aspects. So that's just a general point for this meeting. And then we can move on to item 2, election of the student representatives for the board of the University of Helsinki for the mandate period 22-23. And this will be presented by Marianna, the educational policy expert. Thank you. Good afternoon. I will also do my best to stay calm with my voice. I'll be doing my best. So again, it's time to fill our legal obligation, which is to fill the student seats of the university board. So the current term will be ending at the end of 21. So now in the springtime, we have had the application process for the next year's representatives. So I will first talk through the application process, and if it's okay for you, then we will have short introductions from the candidates so that you would know what sort of people we are talking about. But now, let's get down to business. The Representative Council has set the Central Election Committee, and the chair of which is Jussi Nuorteva, and the secretary has been Jenna, after which the expert secretary has been Marianna. The job of the Central Election Committee is to make preparations for the selection of the student representatives on the board. But the final decision is up to the Representative Council, either based on the proposition or making their own decision. In the interviews in the Central Election Committee, there's been also the Secretary General and 6 different people from different councils. The application period has been opened for a couple of months. And we have required a broad understanding of education policy in the university, understanding about themes regarding university studies, and also advocation in the board. Also, we are requesting a good argumentation and interaction skills and ability to understand big entities, as well as motivation and commitment and Finnish language knowledge. We received 23 applications, and these were processed in the meeting in April. We selected 4 applicants for interviews, and they met criteria of application process, and they also stood out in one or more quality. The Central Election Committee selected both women and men, an equal amount of them, because the board will change after this mandate period. and we don't know the full composition for the next period. We selected 4 applicants, Klaas Meri, Paula Karhunen, Jonna Rättälä, and Sebastian. And we gave them a preliminary exercise, so they had to compose a vision for the university between 22 to 26, and also reflect on the university values and how to reach this vision. So first we will briefly go through the interviews. So Klaas Meri, his strength was the experience of administration in the university and finances, and he had understanding on the longevity of development work. And he also showed good abilities in handling bigger entities. We were still like requiring him to have like more long-term vision and, you know, the student vision. And he had a bit narrow understanding from the student point of view. Paula Karhunen's strengths were excellent argumentation and interaction skills and high motivation and also expertise on education policy. He also had good understanding from the student point of view, university finances. Jonna Rättälä had very good points of view, and she was very motivated, and she had clear argumentation skills. Her answers were a bit more narrow than with the others, and the relevant experience for the post was a bit not as extensive as with the others. And then Sebastian Österman, he had good experience on administration of university and ability for strategic argumentation, good motivation, and also he had good contacts with other students, and he understood the point of view of a student. In conclusion, all the interviewees filled the criteria, but after the interview, we could still see clear differences between them. And then we are now proposing 2 candidates. These 2 persons stood out especially with their strong motivation to work for the important themes of the students and with excellent argumentation skills. Paula Karhunen was showing excellent understanding of educational policy and made an impression with her interaction skills and experience. And she was also highly motivated. And Sebastian Österman has good experience, analytical understanding about university administration. Also, he's highly motivated and willing to commit to the work. And he had good understanding of, or comprehensive understanding of the student point of view. So the Central Election Committee on the 21st of April has decided to propose to the Representative Council that the student members in the board of university between 22 to 23, there will be Paula Karhunen and Sebastian Österholm. The applications of the candidates have been available for the representatives upon request. It's okay for the chairperson now. Paula Karhunen and Sebastian could introduce themselves briefly. First, I would like to ask the preparatory committee if you have talked about this. Yes, the representative committee, the preparatory committee has talked about the matter. Thank you, Emmi. Then we can move on to introduction.
Onko vaikka Sebastian ensin?
Sebastian, would you like to go first?
Ilman muuta. Kiitos puheenjohtaja. Arvoisat edustajiston jäsenet, ärade delegaationsmedlemmar, members of the Representative Council. Kiitän keskusvalintatoimikuntaa luottamuksesta. On suuri kunnia saada seistä, tai siis nykään istua edessänne tässä roolissa toistamiseen.
To be here already for the second time. My name is Sebastian Österman. For the past 1.5 years I've been in the board. Previously I've been in HYY and HYY as well.
ansioluettelomme käytettävissä.
You've had our resumes and other background information, so I will go through them again. Sometimes it feels that it's just been a blink of an eye since the last time I was in this position, but when I'm thinking about how things were 2 years ago, it seems like decades ago, because 2 years ago we also had our crisis, but we didn't have the pandemic, and we all shared the responsibilities and the stresses, and we were able to give peer support. Student culture balanced out the stress of the studies, but now, at current moments, also the mental health and the general situation of the students is more difficult. People say that the pandemic came to us out of the blue, but that's not the case. The scientific community has been forewarning us for a long time of how we are burdening the nature and how the environment and the well-being of people goes hand in hand. It was a risk that we had recognized already behind, and it could have been avoided if we had taken into account the scientific info data. Without any knowledge of epidemiology, I can still say that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And without good research and other good measures, we wouldn't have been able to develop vaccines. So what I'm saying now is that we really need more in-depth understanding about this world, because that helps us prevent the threats of the future. Also, the best medication against current mumbo-jumbo and misinformation, the scientific data supports that.
Suurin saavutus, sillä strategiassa haluamme olla yhdenvertainen ja demokraattinen.
We want to be a democratic and a good educational community and a bold societal influencer. We want to give academic freedom. We want to show initiative and be a bold actor in the education policy, and we want that everybody would be doing well in our community. I think that these are good objectives that need to be spoken out, but as we all know, promises and strategic policies are pretty much nothing if they don't realize in concrete life. Personally, I believe that our university can be a globally most influencing community if we do our job respecting our tradition. The world is not ready, neither is the university. So in conclusion, science is not going to save us, but if we are not curious in our research and want to understand more about the world, we are lost. The university is on the right path, but we are still not in the finish line, so it would be great to continue as a student member of the university board. Thank you.
Kiitos paljon, Sebastian.
Thank you, Sebastian.
Seuraavaksi annan Paula.
Next we will have
Ole hyvä vaan, Paula.
Aura. Can you hear me? Interpreter can.
Arvoisa edustaja,
yes,
kiitän
I can.
keskusvalintotoimikuntaa
Paula.
esityksestä ja pyydän luottamustanne
I think
opiskelijaedustajana Helsingin yliopistolla vuosina 2023.
Yeah, the speaker is breaking up. And it's speaking very fast. Generally, my internet is not working. Hopefully you can hear me. Currently, I have worked in educational politics, both as a educational correspondent in many organs of trust. We've talked and had many opinion pieces discussed. Okay, the speaker is just way too fast. In the middle of all of this, the need for critical knowledge is key. How can we build a better world if we don't know how it works? That's what we need a university for, and the University of Helsinki has always been #1 priority for myself.
Ja sellainen se tulee olla tulevaisuudessa.
it should be the best in the future as well. I want that the Helsinki University will be an autonomous civilization university in the future that enables good study days and a work community for all its staff members. A university that offers agreeable, reachable education for everyone. A university where everybody is equally important and you can finish your degree in the allocated time or a bit more. And a university that can take critical thinking and critical discussion. That's one kind of a university I want to see. This is which for I will give my everything, and it would be great to do my part. And the speaker broke up again.
Kiitoksia paljon myös Paulalle. Voin
thank you to Paula as the CEC chair say that I can be happy that the applicant quality was so high and that we had many applicable good candidates, but out of this group will get the two best candidates. Next we will move to opening the discussions. No requests for the floor have been made, so I decree that we have chosen into the HYY board 2022-23 Paula Karhunen and Sebastian Österman. Congratulations, us and you. Then let's move on to item 3 of the agenda, updating the administrative regulation. And here we have the HYY board member Tuomas presenting. Tuomas are presenting.
Kiitos arvoisa puheenjohtaja.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Tosiaan
So,
vihdoin on saatu
finally, we have finished this long process of updating the administrative regulation. And when I think of what kind of a presentation I will be holding today, I decided that I will not go this through one by one. We will be here tomorrow if I did that. If I go where HYY has been changed to Ylva. So I will focus on the most central updates. The most essential ones. Of course, if you have any questions on anything else, I'll be more than happy to answer them after the presentation.
Aloitetaan edustajista koolle kutsumisesta.
About
koolle kutsuminen on kirjattu hallintohessään.
Gathering the representative council, it's on the section 3. We have a known role for the representative council chair.
Nykyisellään hallintohessäännöstä puuttui kirjaus siitä, että edustajista voi tarpeen vaatiessa kokoustaa sähköisesti.
We lacked the part about remote meetings, and as we have noticed in the last 12 months, is that we might have situations where we might need to be remote. So this is why, to clarify things, we have been brought this into the administrative regulation. All in all, about the RepCo chair, we have written section 27 that the chair would be recognized as an institution in our regulation, and this is what's been done. We have not increased the tasks of the chairs, so because everybody knows that being a chair is a lot of work, notwithstanding any more work. So thus the role of the chairs have been written that current instructive role. Then a second issue which the representative council gave a wish for regarding which with this deputization order.
Se on edustajiston päätettävissä.
So it can be decided by the repco in the future. Thus, we may give up if we see prudent the personal deputies, which was the wish that was expressed earlier.
Sitten
Then,
ratkaisuvallan pidättäminen.
On withholding judgment, that like we will hear when the preparatory committee chair will be unleashed, this current item preparation, this was changed by the preparatory committee. I will be presenting it because I'm presenting the board's template, which is that the change of this, the purpose of this change is that the current section is very, very open to debate and interpretation, and this change will bring something that's already been an accepted practice to which the old discussion or the actual write-up has been interpreted for. So nothing was actually changed, we just brought the thing up to speed with what has already been done. I understand naturally that this kind of touching a write-up like this causes doubt, and I think the mention of the agenda in this board's template caused or sparked feelings. I want to reiterate that in the board's template we did not narrow down the skill or the power of the reference council to withhold judgment or suppress judgment, just to clarify. Then we have stricken a part regarding the YLVA chairs should be the current or previous member of the student union. Here the background is that an YLVA that functions to the best of its ability is a benefit to all its members and its owners as well. As we discussed during the question hour, YLVA's profits fund the student union's activities in its entirety in a few years. Thus we saw it as prudent that this kind of large write-up that would actually narrows the choice down too much is no longer necessary. I want to reiterate here that the board was not unanimous, but the board voted on the write-up. Then what comes to the naming the deputy of the Secretary General, the new write-up narrows down the power of the board instead, as you know, that we have had the opportunity to choose the deputy, but with this change, this right to appoint a deputy will be only narrowed down to a maximum of 4 months. We have also done so that according to the original regulation that we had changed Secretary General for 3 years, with this change and this proposal, the Secretary General choice will be a permanent one, which was the wish of the Representative Council as well. So in short, that's it. Thank you on my part. I will be more than happy to answer any questions.
Yes,
thank you. Thank you for this, and we will then have the preparatory committee chair have the floor next. Thank you. The chairperson, the preparatory committee has looked into the issue, and we have had 2 proposals for change, first of which concerns withholding judgment or decision, which decided to strike the word forms concerning suppressing or withholding judgment. We had 8 votes, 4 and 2 for the template and 2 empties. The second change regarded another technicality to clarify the role of the preparatory committee that was approved 12 for, 2 against. Thank you. Then requests for the floor. If you have any requests for the general discussion, no requests for the floor for the general discussion have been requested. Do we have? Yes, we might have. Thank you. Short technical break.
Sonja Naalisvaaralla on ilmeisesti ryhmäpuheenvuoro tähän kohtaan. Jostain teknisestä syystä mä en näe sitä.
For a technical reason, I can't see the request for the floor from the...
Eli annan sitten Sonjalle puheenvuoron.
I'll give Sonja the floor.
Siellä se pitää mullekin näkyy.
I should maybe see that
Ryhmäpuheenvuoro.
a group chair,
Yes.
group speech. So thank you, Chairperson and dear Representative Council. We Who Greens want to thank for a good preparatory work concerning the administrative regulation. Thank you for the board and the committee. The changes and additions were very much needed and according to our wishes. We see it as important that the role of the chairs is defined in the regulation, also with the stricken that we are actually who can be a responsible employer, so the items for the Secretary General can be removed. We are satisfied with the template, but we will be later second Sitvas's striking that will be presented later, but we will second this removal for item 29 concerning the board's meeting in less than 24 hours by unanimous decisions, in that this change would be according to the current administrative regulations. We feel that our economy should be done responsibly, which means that the situation that even in a pandemic, we should not see that the board should meet in less than 24 hours. We see 24 hours as more than plenty. This is why we second Sitvas's proposals for change. In any case, thank you for the preparation. And thank you, Tak. Thank you.
Kiitoksia Sonjalle.
Thank you to Sonja. No other requests floor have been made for the general discussion. So we will move to the detailed discussion to discuss the proposal for change. We have a single proposal for change. I think we have a second one, Justus Lehtisaari from Sitvas.
Kiitos. Hyvää iltaa, arvoisa
Thank you. Good evening, dear Chairperson and Representative Council. Sonja's based prepared removal. Currently on 29th, we have the addition of which hosting a meeting in the current time could cause so significant financial detriment for the student union. A meeting can be called earlier by unanimous decision. Sitvas proposes that this addition not be made, allowing a meeting less than 24 hours, even though minutes before, would make that the student union's REPCO could not exercise its right to withhold. We have lots of delegated financial power, so if a change would require whose board's decision, it would basically be something very, very big, when the need for openness and trust between the parties is higher than ever before. The administrative regulation is always built to be permanent, so it should be built to be sustainably permanent. Even though the current board and the REPCO have an amicable relationship, it might not be that always in the future. The regulation in an extreme case, for example, in a situation where a group or a larger part of the representative council would not trust the board's activities for the best of the student union, would be one of the last forefronts of security. This removal would not bring the benefit that would actually justify taking one of these good safeguards away. Thank you.
Kiitoksia Justukselle ja
thank you to Justus, and we will be moving to handle the requests for the floor, first of which I will give the right of the floor to Emmi Westermark preparing Saara Aalimus.
Kiitos arvoisa puheenjohtaja.
Thank you, Chairperson, dear representative council members. From SNEP's part, I'd like to thank Sitvas's point, making the point we second completely that enabling the board to meet in less than 24 hours is needless and can be abused in extreme cases. We see it as hard to see a situation where less than 24 hours would actually be necessary. So we second Sitvas's request to strike this change from the template. Thank you.
Ja osista valmistautuu Sami Hasunen osakunnista.
Preparing Sami Hasunen osakunnat.
Arvoisa puheenjohtaja, hyvä edustaja.
And Zahra Aalimus speaking. Dear Chairperson, dear Representative Council, thank you for the well-made preparations into the regulations. So in short, also is also seconding Sitvas's proposals for change to change the template. Thank you.
Kiitoksia vaan Zahra. Sen jälkeen
thank you, Saara. Then Sami Hasunen osakunnat. No other requests for the floor have been made. The rest of the requests by Sami's speech. Dear RepCo, dear chairpersons, also osakuntalaiset second Sitvas's proposal for change. It's very noteworthy that even though the item talks about financial risks and discuss the opportunities that we need to make quick decisions, I would like to note that the rule or amendment would in practice mean that the board could make panic decisions regarding our financial decisions. Just 24 hours of preparation in financial situations is very, very short. The situation where we need to discuss and decide on the spot, hopefully that's something that will never happen, that usually in business never should happen. And that when we remember that our board is not made of experts when it comes to business, it is extremely strange and extremely dangerous that our board could be forced without prior prepreration to decide the student union's economically crucial decisions. Preparation for that, even 24 hours, is not enough. Osakuntalaiset second Sitvas's proposal for change.
Kiitoksia.
Thank you.
Samille ja tässä välissä
thank you to Sami, and in the middle we didn't have any other requests for the floor.
Hallituksen vastaukseen.
We'll have the board's rebuttal. Thank you.
Arvoisa puheenjohtaja, hyvät edaattorit. Tosiaan,
dear Representative Council, I have to say that this discussion for this item kind of went to the different direction that I thought. That when presenting, we have not thought of when we proposed this, we didn't think of more Ylva-related things. But for example, a situation where we have a pandemic situation, we have an event worth, I would say, 30,000 euros that we need to cancel very fast in a manner that, for example, there are no restrictions in place, but we see that with clean conscience we cannot hold a large-scale event. Thus, what I personally have seen this write-up is that this is very, very tightly regulated. You need to have a significant financial detriment. My own evaluations that the board would be a couple of tens of thousands of euros when relating to the annual budget. And you always need to remember that if the board will seek to abuse its power, the Representative Council always has the mandate to fire the board. So we have a kind of a safeguard in place, inbuilt into the system itself. I understand, however, the concerns of the previous speakers for this item. And at this stage, I'm kind of regrettably that I didn't have the item in questions in my presentation in more detail, but like one of our great poets says, you can learn from your mistakes. Reference to a Finnish rap artist. But in the end, I like to reiterate that these Ylva-related several million euro decisions are not something that we have had in the background, but we have had these more everyday things like large-scale events and contracts pertaining to these events. Thank you.
Kiitoksia vaan.
Thank you. Now we have one more request for the floor, but the floor has already been closed. The board will, of course, be given the chance to answer these. So this is why we'll not discuss more, but we will move on to vote. We have received all the arguments at this stage. So I will ask the Secretary General to prepare the vote. And the Secretary General's mic is on mute.
Pääsihteerillä on mikki pois päältä.
Secretary General's mic is still on mute. Sorry, that was my fault, says Jussi. So we'll be with one microphone with Jussi here. So Secretary General speaking now. So we will move to vote on the issue. We will vote through HYY with the way that's known by everyone. You should have a link into the system. If you have not received a link, please speak up. Make it known that we will get you a link. But if these notifications have not been made, we'll make a new roll call. I will check the attendance and compare it to HYY that we can actually get the... So we'll do a roll call next.
Paikalla.
Andre Hilda.
Paikalla.
Ali Zahra.
Paikalla.
Andersson Emilia.
Paikalla.
Kosasi Alina.
Närvarande.
Felman Aslak.
Närvarande.
Granström Samsa. Granström Samsa.
Pahoittelut, teknisiä ongelmia. Jaa.
Kyllä, paikalla ollaan. Haapolainen Joo.
Paikalla.
Haapamäki Siru.
Paikalla.
Aslahti Ellen.
Paikalla.
Hakala Lea.
Jep.
Hasselblad Lukas.
Närvarande.
Hasunen Sami.
Paikalla.
Hatakka Lauri.
Paikalla.
Hiltunen Titta.
Paikalla.
Hippeläinen Antti.
Paikalla.
Houttu Aku.
Paikalla.
Itkonen Laura.
Paikalla.
Kanervo Mikko.
Paikalla.
Karhunen Mikko.
Paikalla.
Kasamo Jenny.
Paikalla.
Katajisto Mila.
Paikalla.
Keskiivari Kim.
Paikalla.
Kokko Riikka.
Läsnä.
Koskijoki Kreta.
Täällä ollaan.
Kovanen Teemu.
Närvarande.
Kyllönen Riku Petteri.
Paikalla.
Lahtiharju Arttu.
Paikalla.
Lamberi Benjamin.
Paikalla.
Lehtisaari Justus.
Paikalla.
Leikoski Lotta.
Paikalla.
Lemström Anna.
Paikalla.
Linkola Maija.
Paikalla.
Lipienen Helmi.
Paikalla.
Mattila Saku.
Paikalla.
Melander Etta.
Paikalla.
Mikos Iina.
Närvarande.
Naalisvaara Sonja.
Paikalla.
Nevalainen Veera.
Paikalla.
Niiranen Minna.
Paikalla.
Niskala Iiro.
Paikalla.
Nurminen Sammy.
Närvarande.
Nyman Onni.
Paikalla.
Ostrovski Tommi.
Paikalla.
Partanen Linnea.
Paikalla.
Peltonen Hekma.
Paikalla.
Pietilä Alexander.
Paikalla.
Piipponen Iida.
Paikalla.
Pirttijärvi Heta.
Paikalla.
Kosa Matias on edelleen estynyt vai onko tullut paikalle tässä välissä?
Estynyt.
Just näin, hyvä. Pulliainen Joonas.
Paikalla.
Puumalainen Julia.
Paikalla.
Saani Ville-Veikko.
Paikalla.
Salaja Lauri.
Paikalla.
Särkilahti Iiris.
Paikalla.
Tammekan Samuel.
Paikalla.
Tolonen Joonas.
Närvarande.
Vandermeulen Eugenie.
Present.
Välitorala Venla.
Paikalla.
Ja Westermark Emmi.
Närvarande.
Kiitos. Puheenjohtaja läsnä 59 edellä.
We have 59 representatives.
Sitten siirrytään itse äänestykseen.
And now let's move on to the vote itself.
Eli äänestyksessä on
So in the vote, we have the Justus proposal for removing, so saying yay, you are for the template, and voting no is for the proposal for change. And the proposal for change is that
muutosesitys kuuluu, että poistetaan
we would remove the parts that if there could be a huge financial liability, the meeting for the board can be convened in a shorter notice by unanimous decision. And this can be found in section 29.
Äänestys on
and the vote has now been activated, and you should find it on Heimo.
Sitten mä jaan teille tästä vielä näyttöä, niin voitte.
And I will share my screen.
Kehittämistä.
Okay, good. So would the Secretary General give us the result?
Ja puheenjohtaja Vaalissa annettiin 59 ääntä.
So 59 votes were cast, 45 for the change, 11 for the original, and 3 empty votes.
Hyvä, kiitoksia pääsihteerille. Ja
Thank you to Secretary General. So let's say that the proposal for change has been accepted or approved.
Äänestystarpeita meillä tässä kohdassa.
There are no other needs for votes at this item, so we can say that with these changes we have accepted the new administrative regulation. Congratulations to everybody, and closing item 4. Moving on to item 4. Board's responses to written inquiries. And now I will give the floor to the chairperson of the board, Jessica. All right, thank you, and hello everybody. I will open the answers for 2 questions orally because I need my own notes here as well.
Ellei Mikko halua esimerkiksi jakaa vielä.
Unless, of course, Mikko would like to share the response. But anyway, we want to keep this short and concise. So the first written question that we received was about the locking system in Doma and renewing the locking system.
Tästä on lähetetty ja myös siitä toisestakin. Lähetetty vastaukset kirjallisena.
The written responses have been sent to the email list of the representative council, so you can see them there for if you want to have a deeper look into them. But let's move on to the answer. So the case was that the locks at Domma were supposed to be changed. Now, what went wrong, obviously, was that the bill and the information were not passed on properly, so they were not delivered to properly in the operational funds and in the estate funds. Nevertheless, the renovations had to be done, and they were done according to the previous regulations of the operational funds. So, according to the original wishes, the bills were paid by the end of February because it was a binding agreement which we really had to pay. If we are thinking about different parties, who is the tenant in these facilities and Ylva is the landlord? Who gave this to Ylva to do it, and then they decided to do it with a third party who then sent the bill to who. And the timetable or the timeline was that the board has received information halfway through February at the 16th. So before that, already on the 1st of February, me and Inga, the vice chair and the chair of the board, received the information. And on the board table, or for the board to decide, this was brought in the beginning of March, alongside the supplementary budget. And in that meeting, we approved of this supplementary budget in its entirety, and we passed it on to the representative council. So this is a summary of the case. What is clear here is that we should improve with our communications, and already during the spring, we have made the communication between Hu and Ylva more straightforward. Later in the meeting, we will also have a look at the proposal for change. So we need to have clear guidelines for the future so that this mistake wouldn't repeat itself in the future. So that was that. And then... no, at this point, if anybody has any questions about this, or do we take the questions at the end? Now let's take both of your answers first, and then let's have the open discussion. Okay, great. The second question was about member services and the possible surveys done to that. For that, we finished our answer today. So you have received the email today, and I will give a short oral summary of that.
Tämä kysymys koski siis sitä, että
So the question was about why the operation plans or plan of action does not have an entry of the board plan of objectives, about possible new membership benefits, and also how to make them in reality. And that's really true that a separate inquiry was not mentioned in the operation plan, but now we reacted and we are going to have a membership survey. And in addition, also we will do further inquiries in the autumn.
Ja me koetaan, että jäsenkyselyn hyödyntäminen myös
We feel that using a member survey in addition to the extra mapping is well grounded, because then we get a more comprehensive information about the wishes of the member base. All in all, the member services are really like leaning on communication, because many of our services are not like concrete, but they are more like advocacy, for example, which is something that happens at a very abstract level. So for existing member services, it's important to communicate about them. And we will also look into new possible concrete member services.
Joo. Ja vielä erikseen kysymys siitä, että miksi sille
And then also the question about why the member survey has such a high emphasis. Well, this is something that concerns the whole member base, so we need to have a comprehensive understanding of the opinion of them. Also, our central office resources need to be taken into account so that we will have time to implement all the surveys that have been defined for this year. And now we will also take this under work. In the previous member questionnaires, there haven't been any questions about the member services, but indeed now we are also going to have that highlighted in the questionnaire. And then about the timeline. We decided to do further inquiries in the autumn, so we will have a working group inside the board to do the survey or assessment, and the content could be pretty much that we would survey the current member services, and we will also do some benchmarking and looking into other student unions, what they have but we don't. And also we think about completely new services. So first we will do a template, and then we will supplement it based on the member questionnaires. And then, based on the whole thing, we will evaluate what sort of possible new membership services could be suitable for our operational environment. Of course, we also need to take into consideration the costs and think if they are, financially doable. It is clear that many benefits and services do require extra budgeting and extra resources. So maybe a more detailed discussion in the representative council will also be called for. And in conclusion, we are going to make sure, because this all will be done or finished towards the end of the year, we will make sure that all the data of the questionnaires and relevant discussions will be passed on to the next board as well. Thank you.
Kiitos vaan, Jessica.
Thank you, Jessica. What we will do next is I will take requests for floor, subject by subject, and then in the end I will give Jessica the chance to give comments before we end this item. But first, let's take this GG thing. Mikko Karhunen has requested for the floor. So Mikko, the floor is yours. Thank you, dear chair and representatives. And also thank you for the board for your response.
Tätä domuskaudiumia varmaan käsitellään sitten tuossa lisäbudjetin yhteydessä, niin sitten siihen sen substanssiin, niin en mene tässä nyt niin kuin...
I'm not going to go now into the actual substance of the supplementary budget, but in the same appendix there was the 8th question about the acquisition project. There it was said that according to the decision, the values going over 70,000 should be subjected to the financial committee, and a working group will implement these things. So I have 2 points here. So first of all, there's a question of following the legislation of procurements, because we need to follow the legislation. So when the procurements go above 60,000, they should be considered. So has this been taken into account? And then another question, we also have the right to appeal, which is, the function of which is to give autonomy to the individual members to keep an eye on our operations and make appeals on things that we're not satisfied with, even if, we wouldn't be, involved. The right for this appeal is, for example, used in a way that if certain purchases are made, then the official makes the purchase. There is a certain deadline or top line for that. It's around a few thousand. It's not tens of thousands. So first, then it needs a written decision or proposal, and then there is a few-week consideration period where people can ask for corrections or make appeals, and then it becomes valid, and then the said person can make the acquisition. In the university law, we do have the right for appeal. So how does this actually work? If the student union makes an acquisition of 20,000 euros, to my understanding, the representative council's possibilities to do or to practice this autonomy, should this process be done in a way that the financial committee makes a decision, then it will be made public, and for 30 days then people can ask for corrections, and then the contract can be made. If people are making or demand a correction, then the correction request will be processed, and if necessary it will be taken into administrative court. So has this right for appeal been taken into consideration? So the acquisition legislation and the appeal rights, they are my questions. Thank you. Do I answer now or in the end? Let's take all the answers in the end.
Käydään tämä keskustelu loppuun. Sitten ei ole muita DG-puheenvuoroja tässä.
There are no more requests for the floor now. So let's move on to the question on member services. First request for floor from Osakunnat, and then the second from Sami Hasunen after Benjamin. So first Benjamin. Thank you, Chair. Dear representatives, on behalf of Osakunnat, I want to thank the board for the answers, and we can see that you are taking this seriously into account. We see it as a promising direction that in addition to the service and questionnaires, you are also making a working group to look into the matter, but we want to point out that only facilities, legal help, advocacy, and childcare are not the only member services that seem meaningful for most of the students, no matter how much you communicate about them. The students need services that have a direct, concrete impact on their life. For example, legal assistance and childcare only affects a very limited amount of students, and this amount doesn't change no matter how much we communicate. When the operational environment changes, this becomes more and more critical, and therefore we are disappointed that the promotion of this whole thing is only starting in the autumn. We hope that the board takes this seriously into consideration so that who will be considered an important part of the student path. This is important, especially if mandatory membership will be abolished. Otherwise, we might be facing an ill fate. Thank you.
Kiitos vaan Benjamin ja seuraavaksi Sami.
Next, Sami.
Aikana pyydän muita puheenvuoroja, koska se
and while Sami is speaking, send your request for floor. Because after Sami, otherwise we will give the floor to the board. Dear representatives, at this point I would like to remind the board about who has written the program of objectives. It's been written by the Representative Council, who required means and action. We wanted the member services to be improved. The Representative Council is not unaware of what services we already have. If we feel that we don't communicate enough about the services, and the problem would be the communication, then the Representative Council in their program of objectives would have required better communication, but this is not what we did. What we did is we wanted to look into improving the member services and also taking concrete action. So I hope that board takes this seriously into consideration. The Representative Council's opinion should be interpreted as it has been expressed. We know the current situation and we want to improve it. So communication is not enough to improve the best present situation. And just like Benjamin already said, proper communication doesn't increase the need for legal services, let alone childcare. People will not have more legal problems, or, people will not have more children, whether or not we communicate about these services. Rather, we should have member services that would be really, targeted to all of the member base. Now we have only services for some of our members. Communication is not the answer. Thank you.
Kiitoksia Sami, ja muita puheenvuoropyyntöjä ei ole tullut, joten päätetään tässä kohdassa keskustelua ja annan nyt.
Thank you, Sami. And now let's move on to the board comments.
Kiitos kommenteista.
Thank you for the comments.
Mikon kysymyksiin koskien tätä
For Mikko's questions regarding DOMMA, the right to complain. I'm not an expert, but I got an information in my earpiece that the legislation requires that we have a competitive tendering, and in big over 60,000 euro competitive tenderings, we always will have a competitive tendering.
Eli tämmöinen vastaus siihen. Ja
so this is the answer to that.
Kysykää Mikko tai muutkin.
And you may ask Mikko or anybody else more if you feel like you need to ask more after the meeting. On right to complain, I can't say. If Mikko, you may continue with that. We may find out more for you. Hopefully that's okay. Then thank you.
Venkku ja Hasu paljon hyvistä nostoista.
For the good points.
Ja otetaan todellakin vakavasti.
We take this seriously. We take the issue very seriously. We are satisfied that your groups and other members have raised this issue. It is very important. We feel it as extremely important.
Ja että
that membership is considered as
mahdollisimman moni, ellei jopa kaikki voisi saada
important.
jotain etua.
As many as possible, and if not all, could get benefits and feel
Tosiaan lähdetään sitten syksyllä
important.
tekemään
In the fall, we will continue with the
tästä hetkestä eteenpäin
report, and from here on out, we hope as a board that you will contact us
jos teillä on joku
if
idea
you have an idea
uudesta palvelusta.
for a new service.
Niin, viestiä tulemaan vaan. Muuten me keksitään vain toki sitten kaikenlaista ja tehdään sitä selvitystä muista
if not, we will find things out for ourselves.
Opiskelijakunnistakin
Another student unions, etc.
jäsenkyselystä, mutta kaikki nämä uudet ideat otetaan.
All these new ideas will be heartily accepted.
Kiitos vielä näistä kirjallisista.
Thank you for these written questions and continuation comments.
Hieno homma. Kiitoksia Jessica vielä näistä vastauksista.
Thank you for the answers
aiemmistakin vastauksista
and other
hallitukselle esitettyihin kysymyksiin.
Other questions for the board. We will be moving forward. I will closing item 4, moving on to item 5 from the table, decision on the proposal for a supplementary budget 2021.
Totean tässä samalla.
And at this stage, I also decree that we have lots of requests for the floors for this and the next item. So we will narrow your speeches to 2 minutes and group chats for 5 minutes. And I will remind everyone that please be brief. Also sent a message beforehand to the Reps and Council that
koska mun tehtävä yliopiston puheenjohtajana on valvoa
as a task
säännönmukaisuutta
is to ensure that we follow legislation, and I've consulted experts that this method where we work through the supplementary budget is possible and not against our regulations, but I will clarify that this edistykselliset means to progress is also possible. This is not an absolute inquiry directing activity, so accepting this is possible. Then I will give Jessica the floor on behalf of the board, after which we will talk about the preparatory committee. Thank you. One moment.
Mulla oli merkitty, että sä alustat tai esittelet. Olenko väärässä?
No, ehkä.
Am I wrong? Are you next? Sorry, no, my mistake. Sorry.
Kaivaa oikean esittelijän.
We'll actually get the correct presenter.
Hyvä, ei esitellä sitten tätä asiaa.
So no presentation on the issue. That's okay because it will come from the template. The preparatory committee has looked at the issue and in their last meeting, so please go ahead. Chairperson, we did one proposal for change regarding the Domus Gaudium access control write-up removal. It was not accepted. 2 for the proposal, 11 against, and 1 empty.
Kiitoksia, Emmi.
Thank you, Emmi. Moving to the general discussion, and we will start with group speeches. Do I interpret correctly that, Lukas, you have requested Snef's group request because you're first? There you go.
Ärade ordförande, bästa delegation.
Dear General Assembly, and the speech is in Swedish.
Vi hoppas att vi i framtiden kan undvika likadana problem. Det är viktigt att det skapas klara instruktioner för hur man ska agera i situationer då budgeten överskrids eller det uppstår utgifter som inte finns i budgeten. Med det sagt så anser inte SNEF att det finns tillräckligt vägande skäl för att förlänga processen kring tilläggsbudgeten. Vi som grupp stöder alltså tilläggsbudgetens godkännande. SNEF thinks that
it's good that we have had this discussion on the supplementary budget, and we wish that we can avoid some similar problems in the future. It is very important that we have good instructions on how to act if the supplementary budget would be surpassed or if there are new expenses not in the budget. So we agree with the budget. We don't see the requirement for continuation of the process. Thank you.
Kiitoksia Lukas ja erityisesti kiitoksia puheenvuoron Divinen.
Then the next request of the floor for
siirrytään sitten
Divi, then we will move on to
Sonja Naalisvaaralla on ryhmäpuheenvuoro.
Sonja Naalisvaara has request from the Greens. Please, Sonja.
Puheenjohtaja. Ja hyvät edaktorit. Edustajiston yhtenä tehtävänä on valvoa hallituksen.
One of the tasks of the REPCO is to monitor the board in its activities, which is an important task. If something goes wrong, it's important that the REPCO can intercede. In this situation, communication has not been as good as it should have, and we have this suspicions of whether or not to approve the budget. We, in this situation, approve the supplementary budget because this 30,000 euro sum is an operational budget cost. We see that who should pay it. The sum has been paid for the access control update for Domus Gaudeum to ease the members in their activities. If we would actually reject this and request Ylva to pay it, it would be a problematic case in the future. That we could actually, by this method, move our expenses to Ylva. We don't want also to micromanage Ylva or to intercede in every single small decision. Based on these grounds, we second the supplementary budget for acceptance.
Kiitos vaan Sonja.
Thank you, Sonja.
Seuraavaksi ryhmäpuheenvuoron tulee puhumaan Tommi Ostroski Hyalista.
Hyal next.
Ei ole
no other group requests have been presented. If other groups want to speak, please submit your requests now.
Kiitos puheenjohtaja. Hyvä edustajisto.
Thank you, Chairperson, dear Representative Council. The supplementary budget has caused a lot of discussion. We state that tabling was necessary and we can have found discrepancies in the activities. We have gotten our explanations and we have taken measures for better communications. Hyal sees that the best measures have been taken and we believe that this will not happen again. This is why we, with good conscience, second the supplementary budget acceptance as it is.
On tätä remonttia pyytänyt ja remontin tarve on lähtenyt.
Who has requested for this renovation and the request has started from the prompt of the members.
Se on toteutettu myös niin.
It has also been implemented in a manner that the new system is acceptable with who and other accessions. So we can deem that this is indeed a necessary cost. When it's a renovation requested by us in our own facilities, it is natural that when it's being paid, it should be paid by us. We don't see that returning this bill to Ylva would serve any purpose whatsoever. And also the operational budget can be requested from Ylva for it, so it's not away from anything. The presented facts support the supposition that we should pay the invoice. Thank you.
Kiitoksia Tommi ja sitten edistyksellisten ryhmäpuheenvuoron.
Tommi and the edistykselliset request Lotta Hart.
Ei ole.
No other requests have been made.
Ryhmäpuheenvuoron jälkeen
then
yleiskeskusteluun tai jos yleiskeskustelupuheenvuoroja ei tule, niin sitten yksityiskohtaisesti. Ole hyvä.
If no other requests have been made, we'll move to
Kiitos puheenjohtaja.
Detailed discussion. Thank you, Chairperson, dear Representative Council. I'd like to reiterate this Domus Gaudium related decision's significance also, that which is why this cost should be not passed. It is clear that the individual cases should be handled on an individual case basis according to the regulations. Based on the board's answer, it is clear that the person in charge has surpassed their powers of decision, which makes it non-binding to us. Why it's so important is that this has not happened before. We have a special responsibility on what kind of a prior case we are creating. In the end, this is based on the fact that somebody has acted against the rules. This is in principle an important decision when talking about whether or not to follow the rules. It is about accepting a cost which it has to be paid by us in result of actions that have not been based on regulations. With the supplementary budget, the REPCO can accept this posthumously, but so in this case, the REPCO can sanctify actions that break the rules. The other option is to rectify the mistake. I would reiterate the importance of following rules for sustainable actions in the organization. Following organizational rules are a cornerstone of organizational activity. In the student union, this need is especially big because we are deemed by good management principles, cornerstones of which are acceptance and following of the rules. Especially in an organization like the REPCO, we cannot sanctify activities that these actions are not followed, and these regulations are not followed. We have the responsibility to follow these rules to our and we have the responsibility to our members. And when we are talking about basic issues, just talking about the importance of following the regulations are not enough. We need concrete decisions through which we show that we need to follow the rules. I think that everybody has stated that a mistake has been made. Now it's a case of whether or not should we rectify this mistake or make another mistake to follow the first one. I think that we cannot rectify a mistake by making another mistake. It is not in the interest of the student union to pay the costs for negligence caused by other parties. This is why this mistake must be taken seriously and we must reject the invoice from the supplementary budget. Thank you.
Kiitoksia.
Thank you.
Tosiaan siirrytään sitten yleiskeskusteluun ja
moving on to general discussion. Saaraille from also first
sitten valmistautuu Sami Hasunen osakunnat.
Preparing Sami Hasunen osakunnat.
Kiitos puheenvuorosta.
On
erittäin tärkeää, että
it is very important that this supplementary budget is discussed a lot in order for us to get a transparent decision and to avoid the expenses and mistakes in the future. Also, seconds accepting the budget unanimously. Thank you.
Kiitos Zahra. Sitten
Thank you. Zahra, then Sami Hasunen.
Ja muita
No general requests have not been made. If you have more of these during this speech, please make them, then we'll move on to the detailed discussions and also proposals for change, including Sami. Thank you. We've discussed a lot about the budget, and good points have been made on this current model should not be the model in which things are carried out in regards to financial decisions. The REPCO accepts the budget, and within these confines of the budget is how we must do business. This is not the first time that these kinds of discrepancies have taken root. For example, the central office furniture was a problem just like this one. So we have a real and true need to think of how to improve these processes, how to avoid budget oversights. So we can maybe rectify the mistakes with supplementary budgets. It might work, but even though I feel like this, I think that the problem is with the manner. It's not the singular budget. And this individual budget, the problem has already taken place. We cannot rectify the mistake by accepting this budget. And in this situation, it's really not prudent on who will pay the cost. We'll focus on the mistake itself. Rectify the mistake, but forget slowly this budget issue. We will the money will have to be paid. That's not going away. Thank you.
Kiitoksia Sami. Yleiskeskustelu ei ole muita puheenvuoroja.
No request for the general discussion have been made, so moving on to detailed discussion. Mikko Karhunen proposal for change, seconded by Lotta Aarto.
Mikolla on esittelypuheenvuoro tähän muutosesitykseen liittyen. Ole hyvä, Mikko.
Please, Mikko.
Kiitoksia arvoisa puheenjohtaja, hyvä edustajisto.
Thank you, Chairperson, dear Representative Council.
Tässä keskustelussa mainittiin, että
mentioned that there would be micromanagement or intersecting. That's not the case. That I have to say, like the chairperson very well said, the edistykselliset option is entirely possible. That it's possible means that we have not had a mandate, we have no binding, and it's an issue of using this model to return this to where it belongs. This is not a case of new procedure. It's a question of returning the expense where it belongs. The point of the proposal is that we will lose the extra budget from Domus Gaudium and coincidentally not take funds from the fund, the operational fund. And by doing this, we will ensure that in this situation we have a direct and honorable approach to things. I'll also have a resolution proposal. Representative Council will mandate the board through several means to act in a manner that the student union's activities, the Domus Gaudium access control invoice, at about 30,000 euros, will be moved from operational activities to Ylva in a manner that it will never be an expense of the actions of the student union. If the REPCO will not accept him, if we do so, we are in the situation that we will have paid an invoice without grounds. But this motion would be used to explicitly express their will by the Representative Council. Thank you. I may submit this in a manner that it should be done. So the Secretary General, it seems. I'll reiterate that, Mikko, that in practice you would do so that this investment item would be minus 20,000 euros, not minus 50. So this is not the case? Yes, exactly so. And we would have the grounds on Domus Gaudium's part. We'll strike them. And at the start of the evaluation, I think we have the 60,000 and we would remove 30,000 from there. The aim is to return it to the correct place. Checking that we know this. We will vote on this soon. No other requests for the floor have been made.
Ja meillä on nyt sitten
we have
kaksi äänestystä tulossa.
actually we have 2 votes upcoming, one of which is this proposal for change, whether or not to strike this from the budget, or the supplementary budget, and then we have this motion
ehdottivat,
proposed.
Niin siirrytään sitten äänestämään ja äänestetään ensin.
And we will first move to vote on this 30, and then on the motion, the resolution. Thank Chairperson. We will move to vote. And Heimo. Heimo is active now.
Aktivoitu äänestysnimellä muutosesitys Mikko Karhunen.
We have a proposal for change by Mikko Karhunen.
Ja äänestämällä
and by voting yes, you will be voting for the template of the board and the preparatory committee accepted as is, and voting no, you will vote for the proposals for change, for striking the 30,000 euros access control invoice from the budget and have it paid by Ylva, removed from the the budget, and you may also vote empty.
Sitten mä laitan tässä teille jakoon.
I will share. Of the votes have been tallied, so we'll see the results. And the chairperson will have had 59 votes, 52 yes, 7 votes no, 0 empties.
Kiitoksia.
Secretary General, the template prevails. After which we will move to vote. The resolution. If you have a technical comment quickly, then you may say. If not, but this is not the item.
Joo, kiitos puheenjohtaja.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Edistykselliset eivät pidä kulun sisällyttämistä.
Edistykselliset do not feel
edun mukaisena ja
this as
tästä asiasta.
We want to have a dissenting opinion on the result and hope that it will be marked into the minutes. We will give the dissenting opinion after the meeting.
Kiitos vaan, Lotta. Onko Mikko sulla sama sisältö?
Thank you, Lotta. Then you have the second issue. Yes, of course, I second the dissenting opinion because I feel this is an issue that should have happened in another manner. But at this stage, I may state that this resolution should be not voted on because it kind of ties in with the previous vote. So if we would have not gotten a different result, so I may just retract my resolution at this point. Yes, so we will not be voting on the resolution. Good. Then, of course, Lotta and other signatories will have the dissenting opinion. We can get that rolling, as it were. Good. Then moving on to the next item, we have handled item 5. Moving on to then item 6. We are closing on the discussion on updating the policy paper. It said that we have lots of requests for the floor, which is why lots of discussion, which is good. But which is that I will propose a 6-minute break, and continue 6:45. So you're going to have some walking around and maybe breathing some fresh air, get some water, etc. So continuing the meeting 18:45. Thank you.
No niin, toivottavasti kaikki ovat palanneet.
Okay, hopefully everybody is back on the screen
Laitteiden ääreen.
or on your devices.
Seuraavaksi kohtaan 6.
Now we will move on to item 6, discussion about updating the policy paper. Inga was supposed to give the presentation, but first I would like to say that keep the group speeches for 5 minutes and personal speeches for 2 minutes in the discussion. And let's keep it concise and clear. But now let's hear the presentation.
Onko Inga läsnä?
Inga, are you here?
Inga Sylgren.
Inga Sylgren, looking for you.
Ei varmaan oo.
It seems that she's not here. Has Inga been asked to give a presentation? Yes, she was assigned, at least according to my notes.
Saatan taas kerran muistaa asiat täysin väärin, eli anteeksi Ingalle myös julkisesti.
I apologize for Inga. Maybe we have made a mistake here. Yeah, the Secretary General is taking responsibility for the mistake. Jessica, would you like to give a briefing? Yeah, the policy paper process is at a good stage right now. The office comments and the proposal for change from the groups have been processed by the working group for policy paper. For that, I want to thank each member of the working group and also the respective groups. You've done a good job and you've been very careful also with the policy paper process. Now, when the process is taking almost 1 year, so now is a good time to listen to what the groups think and what sort of things you want to highlight.
Ensimmäisessä virallisessa lähetekeskustelussa
in the first official preliminary discussion, we were more concentrating on the process itself. So now let's take comments about the contents. And then, as a board, we will get good advice from you when we will start making our own preparation for templates in August by the board. So we are looking forward to this discussion and your ideas.
Kiitos.
Thank you.
Kiitos paljon, Jessica. Ja
thanks, Jessica. And now the preparatory committee.
Ole hyvä.
Kiitos.
Thank you. The preparatory committee has talked about the matter.
Kiitoksia, Emmi.
Thank you, Emmi. Then we will move on to group speeches. The first group is HELP with Heimo Peltonen. And after this, we will be hearing from Jenny from Sitfas.
Eikö kuulu mitään?
Can you hear me?
Okei, kuuluu ja näkyy.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okei, mahtavaa.
Okay, excellent. Dear representative councils,
Kiitos jokaiselle
I want to thank each and every one of the people involved in the updates of the policy paper, and also I want to thank you for interesting conversation in the working group. Especially we want to thank Inga and Jessica for good work in leading the work. We don't think that the policy paper should have all the entries about what we should have an opinion, but rather it should have the most important pointers of our educational policy and advocacy. In HELP, we want to document the will of us to the extent that we can expect it to remain the same towards the students also in the future. So we want to have clear and ambitious educational policy objectives in the policy paper. We are doing a favor for the future years if the policy paper is straightforward and understandable. So we want to focus on what we have the expertise and the resources and the know-how regarding educational policy. Who should be a genuinely accessible and equal community, not because everybody needs to belong here, but it would be a privilege for the students that would benefit them in their day-to-day life and in more problematic situations. In the current draft, there are a lot of entries, and I think that there were about 500 proposals for change that the work group was processing, so we have doubled the amount of text compared to the previous policy paper. So it's important to think about why there are so much new entries on the policy paper. Is the reason that the role of the policy paper is still not clear to everybody? Advocacy-wise, it's important to think if we want to say a little bit about everything or a lot about a few things. We need to remember that we are not a comprehensive experts organization, so I think that we should be creating a coherent entity without contradictions that would improve the significance of the WHO for the students, and it should be also accessible and easily understandable, and just like all the other documents, it should be available in 3 languages. Herpy said already in the beginning of the update process discussions that as a student union we should concentrate only on matters that are relevant clearly for the students, and we believe that this objective is doable in less than 20 pages. Thank you. Thank you, Hekma and Help. And next, Jenny from Sitvas, and preparing Soina from WHO Greens.
Arvoisa puheenjohtaja, hyvä edustajisto.
Dear Chair and Representative.
Yleisilme on lupaava. Monia ehdotuksiamme pääsi mukaan pohjaan. Ja linjapaperista käytiin monia hyviä keskusteluja. Laaja linjapaperi on sitoutumattomalle vasemmistolle tärkeää ja sitä lähdimme tekemään. Vaikka monet teemat eivät kosketa suoraan opiskelua, ei opiskelija elä irrallaan muusta yhteiskunnasta. Monet teemat yhdenvertaisuudesta julkiseen liikenteeseen
about equality or public transport are relevant for the students' day-to-day life. And for that reason, it's important that the policy paper takes a stand also on these issues. We especially hope development for the equality chapter to be more comprehensive. The part about equality should be even more ambitious, straightforward and comprehensive. For example, an entry on intersectional feminism would be necessary. Also, anti-racism should be mentioned more comprehensively. The chapter about equality needs concrete entries on how our student union is improving equality in our community. One thing that we want to highlight is the basic income. In the current drafts, it is said, for example, as follows. Who sees the basic income is
opiskelijalle kuin koko Suomelle, sillä se luo varmuutta ja jatkuvuutta yksilön toimeentuloon epätyypillisten työsuhteiden yleistyessä. Tämä on hienoa, mutta ehdottaisimme, että HY ottaisi kantaa perustuloon vielä vahvemmin lähitulevaisuuden asiana, eikä vain sellaisena kaukaisena häämöttävänä tai kaukaisena tulevaisuuden tavoitteena. Haluan sanoa vielä muutaman sanan päivitysprosessista. On hienoa, että edaria ja jäseniä kuultiin prosessiin liittyen. Linjapaperin prosessi eteni kuitenkin melko kovaa vauhtia. Koemme, että iltakouluja olisi voinut olla enemmän, jotta jokaiseen aiheeseen olisi voinut keskittyä paremmin. Nyt suurille linjoille, kuten yhdenvertaisuudelle, kestävälle kehitykselle ja toimeentulolle, on jäänyt vain vähän aikaa keskustelulle ja argumentoinnille. Linjapaperin päivittäminen on todella suuri prosessi ja ymmärrämme, että siihen liittyy paljon haasteita. Juuri prosessin laajuuden takia olisimme kuitenkin toivoneet, että siihen olisi ollut enemmän aikaa. Toivomme, että jatkamme keskustelua linjapaperista hyvissä merkeissä. Kiitos.
Kiitos paljon Jenny, ja sitten jatkaa Sorjan Alesvaara hyvistä ja valmistautuu Aslak Felman SNEFistä.
Yes, kiitos arvoisa puheenjohtaja. Arvoisat kanssaeditorit. Meitä opiskelijoita koskettavat lukuisat asiat. Millaisessa yliopistossa opiskelemme? Millaisessa kaupungissa asumme? Millainen on yhteiskunta ympärillämme? Saako jokainen olla rauhassa sellainen kuin on? Millaisessa kunnossa maapallo ja luonto ympärillämme ovat 30 vuoden päästä? Opiskelijat ovat vuosikymmenten...
Hi, so I'm not hearing the interpretation anymore and I can't really see what it would be on my end.
Näemme,
So I just wanted to let you know that.
on ylioppilaskunnan jäsenten yhteiskunnallinen aktivoiminen, joka onkin yksi ylioppilaskunnan laissa säädetyn kasvatustehtävän hoitamisen muodoista. Siksi linjapaperissa on tarpeen ottaa kantaa laajasti ympäröivään yhteiskuntaan. Opiskelijoiden elämää laajasti kommentoiva linjapaperi mahdollistaa demokraattisen keskustelun edustajistossa kannoista 26 000 opiskelijan äänestä. Se on osoitus siitä, että me opiskelijat uskallamme keskustella, etsiä ja tehdä kompromisseja ja esittää ratkaisuja meitä koskettaviin haasteisiin. Lisäksi se tehostaa päivittäistä edunvalvontaa helpottaen hallituksen ja toimiston tekemää työtä. Linjapaperin luonnokseen on tehty paljon tervetulleita muutoksia, kuten esimerkiksi yhdenvertaisuusosion lisääminen sekä laajennettu kestävyyden osiota. On tärkeää, että kun esimerkiksi puhutaan kestävästä kehityksestä, puhutaan nimenomaan kestävyystieteiden mukaisesta vahvasta kestävyydestä. Vahvan kestävyyden mukaan kestävyys perustuu ekologiseen kestävyyteen, joka sitten taas mahdollistaa meille sosiaalisen ja kulttuurillisen sekä taloudellisen kestävyyden. Tämä näkökulma tulee näkyä vahvasti linjapaperissa. Me Hyvin vihreät olemmekin erittäin iloisia laajentuneesta kestävyyden osiosta ja näemme, että sen avulla Hyy voi osaltaan rakentaa kestävää tulevaisuutta tuleville sukupolville. Olemme olleet todella tyytyväisiä tähän saakka hyvässä ja rakentavassa hengessä käytyyn keskusteluun. Kunnianhimoa voi olla aina enemmän ja ajatuksia syntyy matkalla lisää, mutta tästä pohjasta on erittäin hyvä lähteä liikkeelle. Kiitos hallitus, keskustoimisto, ryhmät sekä linjapaperityöryhmän jäsenet hyvästä työstä. Kiitos, tack, thank you.
Kiitoksia vaan Sonja, ja sitten Aslak Felman SNEFissä ja valmistautuu Mikko Kanervo edistyksellisestä.
Ärade ordförande, bästa delegation. SNEF anser att det är oerhört viktigt att policydokumentet reflekterar en så bred konsensus som möjligt av studerares åsikter, så att så många som möjligt av studeranden kan stå bakom orden som fastställs i dokumentet. Olemme vahvasti sitä mieltä, että ylioppilaskunnalla on oikeus ottaa kantaa mihin tahansa sen tärkeäksi kokemaan kysymykseen. Mutta haluaisimme painottaa, että ylioppilaskunnan tulisi kuitenkin pidättäytyä ottamasta kantaa kysymyksiin, jotka eivät kosketa opiskelijoita tai ovat poliittisesti hyvin jakavia ja kiistanalaisia. Täten mahdollisimman moni opiskelija voi kokea linjapaperin kirjaukset edustamaan meidän yhteisiä etuja ja ajatuksia. Koemme tärkeäksi myös, että linjapaperissa olevat linjaukset ovat selkeitä ja toimintaa ohjaavia, eivätkä ympäripyöreitä lauseita, jotka eivät oikeastaan tarkoita mitään. Olemme kuitenkin iloisia siitä, että ryhmien välillä löytyy yhteisymmärrystä monista tärkeistä kysymyksistä. Esimerkiksi kielikysymykset ovat meille erittäin tärkeitä ja on ihailtavaa, että näihin kysymyksiin löytyy laajaa yhteisymmärrystä. Ja lopuksi haluaisin kiittää kaikkia prosessiin osallistuneita ja vielä vain mainintana, että Helpin puheenvuoro oli erittäin hyvä ja kannatettava. Tack.
Kiitos Aslak ja SNEF. Seuraavaksi tosiaan Mikko Kanerva edistyksellisistä ja valmistautuu Benjamin Lamberi osakunnista.
Kiitos puheenjohtaja, arvoisa edustajisto. Merkittävin jakolinja linjapaperin valmistelussa oli kysymys siitä, tehdäänkö laaja linjapaperi vai suppea linjapaperi. Ensimmäisessä linjataan laajasti yhteiskunnallisista asioista, joilla ei ole liityntää korkeakouluopiskelijoihin. Toinen keskittyy...
The second focuses on the legal activities of the student union. We asked an expert? Can the student union make policies on outside their legislative capabilities? The answer that the activities, they're kind of bound by legislation. The student union cannot broaden their chosen field without activities, or they cannot. Excuse me. The template talk about the flight tax, military conscriptions, and the municipal elections, none of which have to do with the student union's activities. The board need to look at this in a critical manner. I think that this is weird. That do we have to can we even have to discuss whether or not we can work amongst the legislation?
En minä ainakaan. No, millaiseen organisaatioon sitten haluaisin kuulua?
So, what kind of organization would you want to belong to? In a best organization, the atmosphere is good, and everybody can feel that they're a member.
On jäsenistölleen aidosti annettavaa. Muun muassa positiivisen yhteishengen luomisessa jäsenen oman luovuuden.
A good organization gives it to its members in creating a good atmosphere and offering services
jäsenet arvostavat.
That the members feel is important.
Oli pakko tai ei. Arvoisat edustajat ja hallitus.
Here, representatives and board, let's give up the illegalities and make who the best possible student union. Thank you.
Seuraavaksi on vuorossa.
Next up, we will have sorry, this system is lagging. Last group request would be next. So, thank you.
Kiitoksia arvon puheenjohtaja, hyvä edustajisto.
Dear Representative Council, first up we would like to thank on the process so far. Work groups have undergone well and with good discussions. Next on the policy paper.
Aivan tyytyväinen siihen kehityskulkuun, mihin linjapaperi on edennyt työryhmässä.
Throughout the process we have discussed on how the policy paper should not have policies on the entire political spectrum of the nation. We do not need to have a policy on everything. For example, tomorrow, if a Helsingin Sanomat reporter asks on whose stances on nuclear power, you could just answer no comment. We do not lose anything. We will probably win because we don't divide our member base to an even larger group of small groups. We should adhere to the policies behind most of which our member base can stand behind, which is why we feel that the groups would think on what is the future of our policy paper. The current policy paper has plus 500 rows of text compared to the old one. How long can we just keep increasing the number of text before we look like a political treatise? The policy paper is not supposed to be a paper which depicts all of our activities. We have a sustainable development plan, we have a plan of objectives, etc. We do not have to put everything into one political paper. Who should decide on avoiding overlaps? This would truly develop our opinions. Dear Repco, the policy paper has lots of secondable thoughts and issues that make life better for all of us. Osakunta Group hopes that when discussing things that do not pertain to students, we would stick to general principles. We do not have to have a stance on military conscription or Pete, who is not an expert on energy politics and policies or a military conscription, and we will never be one, and we do never need to be one. So let's stick to the essentials, advocacy. Thank you.
Yes, kiitos Benjamin, ja Sitten siirrytään Neaan.
Okay, thank you. And now let's move on to Nea.
Tämän jälkeen.
And let's have a group speech. And after that, general discussion.
Yes, kiitos puheenjohtaja ja arvoedustajista.
Thank you, dear Repco.
Ryhmä HYYL kiittää hallitusta, keskustoimistoa, muita ryhmiä.
We want to thank the central office and also the policy paper working group for good work.
Ja erityiskiitos vielä Inkalle ja Jessica.
Especially I want to thank Inka and Jessica. You've done a great job. First of all, we want to point out how we feel about the policy paper. We think that policy paper that it should talk about the student life in a broad sense. It should be also a tool for the cooperation groups at the central office about how things are going. The student union should support the aspirations in the society of its members. So this is also supporting the aspirations of the members. Well, the policy paper is not about operative action or strategic guidelines because there are other documents for that.
Sekä kestävän kehityksen ja yhdenvertaisuussuunnitelmat. Toivommekin, että ryhmät voivat muodostaa yhteisen ymmärryksen.
So I hope that we all agree on the nature of the policy paper and before it will be talked about further. I think we hope that this doesn't create an obstacle for proper dialogue and compromises, because everything that I've already mentioned belongs to our activities, so we should represent our members. We should trust democracy now as well. And I'm happy that we are talking about the policy paper and the volunteers. Appreciation for volunteers is a good achievement because the volunteers are the backbone of who. This is a very cross-cutting paper, especially for it's talking about the international students and the problems that they are facing. It's also important that all aspects of sustainable development are taken into account. And we are happy that all groups seem to be supporting this. We are waiting for good dialogue again. Thank you. Soon let's move on to general discussion. We have many requests for floor. And we hope that we talk about items, but then it's up to the courts to decide what is legal and what is not. So the discussions about how broadly we can express opinions has been continuing for at least 15 years now. And people are always kind of pushing the envelope. But let's move on to general discussion. So first Anna Lennström and then Ellen Haaslahti. So Anna, go ahead. Thank you, Chair and dear representative councils. The student movement has a long history as a changer of the world. One of our legal duties is to help the aspirations emotionally and mentally and socially of our students, and I am proud to be a part of the movement that is doing this task. If the students would have kept their mouth shut, our country would be different now. Many things that we take for granted wouldn't exist if the student movements hadn't proposed them back in the day. So we students have made demands, we've had courage to make marches, and we have even squatted places, and we have made our voice heard over and over again. Today we are talking about the policy paper, which is one of the most essential documents in our legal obligations. So I want to encourage everybody to remember that we do have power. When we speak up, we will be heard, so let's not lose this good chance. But the power also brings responsibility. What kind of a world do we want to build? I'm also proud that the student movement has traditionally been involved in promoting human rights towards equality and also a fluent day-to-day life for people in poor position in the society. And I want this to be shown also in the next policy paper. And in the end, I want to highlight what has already been said. We are not living in a vacuum. We are part of the society. We are not a homogeneous group, but we are of many kinds. We have many situations in our lives and many different needs. So asking for a better society is relevant for us. No, student benefits is not the only thing that concerns the students. Also promoting equality has an effect for international students. Also like free birth control is relevant for many of us, or the army issues. But let's not be too narrow-minded, otherwise we won't see the forest by the trees. Thank you.
Kiitoksia vaan Annalle.
Thank you, Anna. And next, Linnea Partanen and preparing Eugenie.
Hyvä puheenjohtaja ja arvoisat edustajat.
Dear Chair and representatives, I just have a quick comment on the policy paper. If it's a narrow policy paper, then the board will have more working hours because the board needs to search for the policies that the representatives could have given them beforehand. And now to the point. In the Ministry of Social and Health Affairs, there is a social and healthcare reform going on. We in the Sitvas think that who, as the biggest student union in Finland, has a good chance to offer our expertise in reforming the social and healthcare. We want to have an active role in influencing the reforms of the social care. We can also give a student's point of view for the social work committee, and we can give them our expertise. Students are the only group in Finland whose basic social care includes the loan, whether or not you actually take it. So there is inequality towards the students. This is especially burdensome for students from low-income families.
Pitkä korkeakoulutus on suuri taloudellinen riski.
So this is a huge financial liability.
Me haluamme tehdä vaikuttamista myös muuten.
We want to do advocacy in other ways in addition to lobbying. So we want to approach the committee and give our suggestions. We want to give comments and also talk about how to improve the basic welfare of the students. Thank you, Linnea. And then Eugenie and preparing Ellen.
Thank you, Chairperson, and dear Representative Council colleagues. The Helsinki University Greens would like to take a moment to specifically talk about the equality section of the policy paper. We feel, as we have stated many times, that it is part of the student union's role to take a stand on wider societal issues, and we are glad to see that the equality section does that comprehensively. We are especially happy with the mentions of the importance of anti-racist practices, the dismantling of structures of privilege, the absolute unacceptability of any kind of sexual harassment or violence, the importance of accessibility for the wide variety of physical disabilities and neurodiversity in existence in our communities, and the equal rights of sexually and gender diverse human beings. This final point is especially important as Pride Month has just started, but as we all know, pride and support for our LGBTQIA+ communities should be an all-year-round endeavor. Of course, on the other side, perfection is always elusive, and therefore we feel that the equality section can be even further improved. It is good, but we feel that it could be more ambitious and our stances made unequivocally clear. Firstly, we are happy that HYY calls itself a feminist community. We would, however, like the word intersectional to be added to that qualification. While we can probably all agree that the practice of feminism should be intersectional, we also know that that is not always the case. Adding the word intersectional recognizes an awareness of that fact and will contribute to making our communities of color feel more safe within HYY. We also feel that the section on anti-racism, while good, is quite short. We would hope that the student union would take a stronger stand and make it clear that this is and should be an urgent priority in the university community and in the wider society. On that note, we would also like to mention the marginalized communities with a centuries-long history in Finland, the Finnish Kale Romani communities and the indigenous Sami peoples, and how advocacy for them should be more clearly declared. Finally, equality of access to all the student union, the university and society has to offer could be more powerfully advocated for in the policy paper. To conclude, we are looking forward to the next phase in the policy paper process and hope that together with the other groups, we can make a policy paper that fights for equality for all, reflects our student union and the power and role it holds within the university community, as well as in the wider society. Thank you. Kiitos. Tack.
Kiitos paljon Eugenie.
Thank you, Eugenie.
Ellen Haaslahti vihreistä ja
Ellen Haaslahti, Greens and Hasunen osakunnat preparing.
Puheenjohtaja, arvoisa edustajisto, näistä voimauttavista puheenvuoroista
For these empowering speeches, good to continue. So
tosi iloisia ylpeitä siitä,
we are very happy to watch the direction where we have developed our policy paper.
Haluaisin vielä palauttaa
I'd like to return to everybody's mind the fact that
opiskelijajäseneksi valitun
the
Sebastian
board we had Sebastian talked about.
Kuten hän totesi, elämme useiden kriisien
Today we are living in a time of crisis and chaos which defines the life of students in large extent. Who can be a part of the solution? We are an effective big societal influencer, which means we need to be a part of the global scene. We also need to ensure that the members can safely trust that we are doing their bidding and their best and in their best interests.
Kysymykset toislaisista eläimistä ovat osa kestävää kehitystä ja on tosi hienoa, että
questions on alternate lives are a part of modern days. So which is good that it's seen in the policy paper, because if who really is something that is actionable and for the future, we should listen to science on all parts, not just the parts which feel good to us and combines with our current thoughts. The point of science is to progress and to enable the renewal of society. It is clear that animal rights are a part of today and tomorrow. For example, neurosciences, the Cambridge Declaration on Animals was made in 2012. And the morality and moral requirements of animals cannot just be sidestepped based on certain parts. So these questions are very central to the climate crisis because nature diversity and cutting down on nature diversity are known problems. This is the knowledge is increasing. For example, in several majors and minors at the university teach and discuss this. So the worry for animal species is spreading amongst the students as well, who should validate the increased knowledge because this is an issue that should be recognized in society. Thank you. Thank you. Ellen, next time is Sami Hasunen, then Titta Hiltunen.
Kiitos herra puheenjohtaja.
Thank you, Chairperson. We have some challenges because actives might have to be in several meetings at the same time. Not fun.
Hyvä edustajisto.
Dear Council, we've discussed a lot on what the policy paper should have, what we should write, and what should it not have. I would like to talk about how we do the policy paper. In this situation, and my situation as a long-term RepCo member, I'd like to discuss respective culture which respects one another with an open mind. University students, we have different kinds of opinions on different kinds of societal issues, all various. One common denominator that one of these things that one representative council member wants into the policy paper does not tell what kind of a person they are. For example, I would not have a stance on flight tax in the policy paper. But that does not mean that I would not feel that the climate crisis is a big thing. I just don't see that this making policies of everything in the policy paper is actually meaningful. In earlier years, the discussion on various things has led to a situation which I would not want to see. It has led to the fact that the points of people and single speeches are being raised again and again in both good and bad. It has led to the fact that individual peoples and their stances are used to make interpretations. None of us, based on this discussion, can say what an individual thinks of an item or a stance. It just talks about whether or not the person sees this item as to belonging in the policy paper, and if so, in what form. This problem has not been able to rectify in earlier years. It is our task to leave this problem behind. Let's respect our opinions and not put words in each other's mouths and say what people think or don't think. These are not part of good discussion behavior. We hope that this time nobody will accuse people, place words in each other's mouths. Rather, let's have a discussion, respecting one another, listen to one another, and make a good policy paper. Thank you. Let's ensure that everybody feels it nice and safe to use their voice. Thank you. Thank you, Sami. Next, Tiitto Hiltonen, sit was preparing Mikko Karhunen from Edistykselliset.
Kiitos. No, Alvaisa edustajisto. Mä luin tämän Lipan luonnoksen ilolla.
I read this paper. I think it's pretty much good. It looks like the students. It's diverse, takes a good stance, but we might have some problematics on what we can actually take a stance on. I feel that it's important that we take a broad stance. We are humans in addition to being students. I also feel that we have a larger responsibility in addition to our own well-being. For example, in climate change, we also discussed on why list a big list of things, all of which we will not have time to make advocacy work. I would like to remember that the policy paper is supposed to be a broad collection of our opinions. We have a plan of objectives for every day and every year. The point of the policy paper's point is to give the opinion of the representative council. It is the means on how can we guide the board in its activities. The board is asked a lot on the opinion on various issues, and if we don't have a stance, then the board will make its own interpretations and have more power. Basically, if we don't have a stance on something, it means we don't use our voice, but leave it to the task of the board. We hope that we listen to our representative council members who are democratically elected. Like the chairperson said, what is legal and what is illegal is decided in court, not in REPCO. So hopefully we could talk less about legislation and talk more about the issues. I'd like to end my speech telling that for the first time I heard about WHO when I read for the entrance exams. We had the Political History of Finland book, and WHO was mentioned. I was very impressed on what was said about WHO, and I believe that we can take our place in 2020 history books. Thank you. Thank you, Tiittonen, Mikko Karhunen edistykselliset, preparing Joonas Pulliainen edistykselliset.
Joo, kiitos arvoisa puheenjohtaja.
Chairperson, dear representative council,
Samille hyvästä puheenvuorosta.
To Sami for a good speech.
Näkisin, että tämä tarkoituksenmukaisuusnäkökulma on.
I'd say that this purpose point of view is very important. Thinking of, for example, the Union of Denticians and Dentists, if they would start to talk about the Saimaa seal protection, Saimaa protection, being dentists, we could discuss whether or not this is prudent. Are we focusing our advocacy resources.
Hammaslääkäriliiton toimesta.
Like if it would have like hundreds of millions of euros in terms of from dentists to the protection of wildlife, is it prudent? Because we need to focus on advocacy for students and student-related issues. Talk about legality. I think it's just an essential issue, talking about these individual points that have been presented. I wouldn't say that I would say that what I think that we have wrong kinds of decisions on consensus. Talk about human rights, of course.
Ei ole toimiva, tai yhteiskunnallisten, sosiaalisten ja henkisten pyrkimysten edistäminen, niin ei anna laajaa mandaatia tähän yhteiskunnalliseen
talking about we don't have a large mandate for activism. And the decision from 2012 is like educational requirements are hindered by something else, which the interpreter had no idea. So it's possible that we go lobby politicians based on this decision. The intention is not to grow politicians. I think that it's a hard statement that legal students would be lobbying their own points. We have not said that, for example, the edistykselliset statement would not be according to the consensus. We should give legal grounds, and if you want to make accusations like this, yeah, people understood the nature of this. If I would be made a part of Vasemmistoliitto, the Left Alliance, that it would not be a case of that we have democratically decided on something that it would be accepted. It's a part of that in a democratic society, people cannot be forced to belong in something if it's a political organization. And this is also an issue of the European human rights chairs, that forcing people against their judgment, for example, belonging to like a trade organization, is at the very essence an insult to the individual. But we've evaluated on whether or not right of free speech is, for example, talk about mandatory memberships.
Tuomarin lisämielipiteessä yhteen ratkaisuun katsottiin, että verotuksessa on mahdollista esimerkiksi sellainen, että
taxation.
Niin on mahdollista, että sun verotuloja käytetään vaikka
if it's a public interest, then it means that your taxation money is used for militaristic purposes. If you're anti-militaristic, when talk about private interest, like this is lobbying of political stances. That's my time. Thank you.
Kiitos Mikko, ja sitten seuraava.
Thank you, Mikko.
Joonas Pulliainen.
Joonas Pulliainen.
Kiitoksia puheenjohtaja.
Chairperson.
Ensiksi
the representative council, I'd like to say that I feel that it's a bit sad that
niin kuin sanotaanko mustamaalla
kind of like it was person is kind of bad-mouthing a good stance only based on
mikä niin kuin kenties tämän ryhmittymän toive olisi.
What this groups wish would be, it's kind of a scary that that this kind of academically acclaimed opinion is treated this way, but personally, for the scope of the policy paper on what we should and could do, I don't see it as very believable that we can of course give grounds on that we have this democratic system, which means that we should do this, or we have mandate. We could have a mandate for a very diverse palette of issues that have very little to do with our activities. But when we can, for example, think about what kind of the representative council elections are, we have so little voting in the elections that you could question their legitimacy on an official level. It's kind of a friend vote. If we talk about who votes, who doesn't vote, Do you know what the student union does? I think that very little of the student union members know what we do, so I don't see that getting democracy done or execution of democracy is that prudent that like maybe having this. This is just talk that kind of just differentiates some of our members from us and takes them far off as far as we have mandatory membership, that is. And when we talk whether or not it's correct or not to make these policies, it's a question of whether we should. I'm thinking of who as an organization and an effective organization at that is that society does not listen to our opinions on energy politics. We are not a credible voice in energy politics or defense politics. I think it makes it easier for the board and central office's task if our policies and what we want to advocate on is focused on those issues that pertain to students and where we have the expertise, have the membership basis broad mandate, so that this societal credibility, talking about, for example, student subsistence or student living, these are. So I see that it's both correct that we focus on our core issues, and in addition, it's something that we should do. So I wish that we would focus on essentials.
Kiitoksia Joonakselle ja
Thank you to Joonas.
Ja Artun puheenvuoron aikana viimeiset puheenvuoropyynnöt.
And last request for the floor during this item.
Kiitos puheenjohtaja. Ja itsekin seison
Thank you, Chairperson, and with Help's speech I stand behind that, so I won't refer to it anymore. What I want to do is that what Joonas was saying, that Joonas took some of my ideas already, and gave them voice. The policy paper is made by the representative council, but we do not represent all of who. We represent about 1/3 of who. It's kind of a long trend, and we will probably continue the trend unless something happens. So it's good to keep in mind that the representative council only represent about 1/3 of who. I want to return to this comment also what Sitva says. I think that it's a bit weird to say that this is a legal student's political agenda with these legal arguments. I agree that I don't wish that the discussion should be very legalized, but legality is an important issue sometimes. Sometimes it's a bit inappropriate to talk about this as a political lobbying agenda, because we have legal groups other that including HELP. I hope that the members could think of their speeches before they voice them out.
Joo, kiitos vaan Arttu.
Thank you. Arttu.
Hyvää keskustelua tästä kohdasta. Ja ehkä just
discussion on this item.
Hyvä tästä keskustelukulttuurista ja
and on discussion culture as well. It's good to avoid
maalaavia
kind of
kommentteja tässä yhteydessä.
Individualization comments. Individualization.
Mä annan vielä Eugenieille nopean kommentin.
Eugenie has a quick comment for this item, then we will move forward.
Yes, I just have a very brief comment on behalf of all of Maailmanpyörä. We would just, first of all, want to really question this turn of events that it just takes, because there was just a legal service or survey about the automatic membership, and the end result was that it's indeed a very legally appropriate system. So we would just like to question what the previous few speeches were trying to say. Then also we would like to say that interpreting the law is not a black or white thing and that it's a little bit too easy to pick the interpretation that suits you best. And finally, I would like to say that using legal terms and language is not extremely accessible. And that presenting your views as facts is not the most helpful, especially to people who are not legal experts. So on behalf of Maailmanpyörä, we would like to contribute that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we are closing the item. We've had some good information or advice on how to work on the policy paper, and we will be getting back to this later. So closing item 6 and moving on to item 7, announcements and other possible issues. In other possible issues, there are at least resolutions, requests for floor, and a spring overview. So first, Jessica with the spring overview.
All right.
Okay. Now, this is a new thing we're doing, because I don't think that it is enough that the board gives only once a year report on what's going on at the central office. So now we are piloting this small situation recap. I really hope that in the future, in the beginning of each representative council meeting, maybe we could have a small recap about what's going on at the central office. But now let's start from this tryout.
Ja tässä ei todellakaan ole kaikkea, mitä kevään aikana
So this doesn't include everything that we've been doing during the spring, but a few important highlights. So the central office's spring greetings.
Tässä vielä kevään ehkä 3
So here we can see the 3 biggest projects at the central office. There's the policy paper and the administrative regulation updates. The policy paper is moving forward. And in October, there are 2 representative council meetings where we will finalize the thing. Administrative regulation now reached the finish line. Yay! And then the management system project has been a big thing on this spring. It's been a part of the recruitment of the new financial manager, which was actually changed to a financial and services manager. So from now on, they will also be responsible for the services like organizations and events.
Sitten vähän henkilöstöpoliittisia asioita.
Then some staff policy. So Marianna, who dropped by in this meeting, has been recruited this spring to substitute for Jenna as an expert on educational policy, and she has taken the job quite well. Then Mintu is our community expert and Janne is the communication expert. Their employment has been now made permanent. And now the official title is the communication manager or expert in charge. And Jaakko Kalske is back as an organization expert. So Mira was standing in for Jaakko, and now Jaakko is back.
Sitten tällä hetkellä päällä olevista
Now, about current recruitment processes, the financial and services manager, the applicants are being interviewed on Monday, and in the last board meeting we will make our selection. Also, there's a recruitment going on for the communication expert ending on the 9th of June, and the decision will also be made on the 17th. If you know somebody who's very good at communication, then, let us know. And who is also recruiting a Swedish translator, and the post is opening shortly, and it will be open in the summer. So if you know anybody, let us know.
Sitten nostona tapahtumat.
Some highlights about the events. We had remote Labor Day happening, and we had Flora Day, which was a live broadcast from Tiedekulma, which also had good content from the organizations. And then one highlight about the future events in the autumn. We are going to have events going on live only if it's like allowed and there are no restrictions. Then about advocacy, a few highlights. So in the educational policy, throughout the spring, we've had active cooperation with the university. We have given our opinions and also given our reports to the COPOP report. Then about social policy, the student healthcare reform has been monitored, and we've done advocacy and influencing on mental health, well-being, and equality. This has required meetings with different stakeholder groups. And we've been also updating the principles of safe space. And then municipal elections, of course. It has been a big project for everybody, especially for the central office. It was a very very big boost, or like a very big thing that we were doing, and it's still ongoing. The campaigns are continuing, and I want to remind everybody that do remember to vote. I also want to commend everybody from who are the candidates in the applicants or in the elections, and if you are part of the support team, then that's also excellent. And thank you. Thank you on behalf of the entire board and the central office to each and every one of you. No matter how active you have been, everybody's input has been important, so I'm very grateful, and the spring has just flown by, and we've had a good time. I hope that this small recap was of assistance for you, and I wish you all the best for the summer. So there. Okay, if you have any questions for Jessica, you can send requests for floor. Now, there has been a resolution. I think the most consistent thing to do is to talk about this suggested resolution as a separate issue. So first we have some other things to discuss, but soon Lotta can present their resolution suggestion or proposal, and then we will hear requests for floor regarding the resolution proposal, and then we will continue with other emerging issues after the resolution so that we can keep this concise. But now, Lotta, would you like to present your resolution? Yep, thank you, Chair. Yeah, this resolution proposal, could you please show it to everybody? Is it possible to get it on the screen for everybody? Yeah, Secretary General is just trying to find it.
Joo, kiitos.
Okay, thank you.
Kuten tässä on aikaisemmin jo todettu.
So, as it has already been stated, this is an individual case, which is very unfortunate. But it's very important that we make sure that this will not happen in the future. So, the objective cannot be reached only by talking, but we also need to take concrete action, and therefore we have this resolution suggestion. So we want to make sure that all the groups can work for appropriate actions in the future. And the idea also is that we need enough time to map out the appropriate measures so that they would be carefully considered. And we also need to make sure that in the future we will act according to how we are supposed to, and we would have sustainable operational environments.
Hyvä. Kiitoksia.
Good. Thank you, Lotta.
Ponteen liittyen ei ole tullut.
So regarding this resolution, there are no further requests for floor. So I hereby state that we make a decision on this resolution, whether or not the representative council is going to make this resolution by voting. So Secretary General can now take the floor. Thank you. I just remembered that one person has left at this point, but apart from that, everybody is here. I added the resolution proposal unchanged on the chat in Finnish for everybody to see. And then we can move on straight to the voting. And for the vote, I suggest you can vote yes for the proposal or no, which would mean rejecting the resolution proposal. And by voting empty, you are naturally voting empty. So yes for the resolution, no is against the resolution. So is everybody now, are the alternatives clear for everybody? No objections here, so the voting is now active, and you can see the proposal in Finnish on chat. And now I will share the screen. And now I will start sharing the screen. And the resolution is the Representative Council requires the board to map out the necessary measures, hearing the different representative groups, and prepares and brings by the end of November 2021 to the Representative Council a program of actions which would help our financial operations in the future to make sure that we would act according to the law and the regulation, and that the student union would be obliged by the requirements of good governance.
Okay. We have our evaluation. We have one vote missing and should be missing for a while if somebody's... You have a... So if you want to vote, please say, but it's of course possible that somebody is missing. So I wrote down one removal, so...
puheenjohtajalle vaikka sopii, että
So if it's okay with the chairperson, we wait for
30 sekuntia.
30 seconds.
Sitten laitan tämän pois. Suljetaan äänestys sen jälkeen. Mutta vielä ehtii rauhassa äänestää. Ja jos on teknisiä ongelmia, niin ihkaiskaa tai ilmaiskaa se muulla tavalla. Niin
If you have technical problems, please let me know. We will then get some more time for you.
näin puoli minuuttia on kulunut.
So 30 seconds have gone. If it's okay with the chairperson, we'll close down the vote.
Äänestys on päätetty.
The vote has been closed.
Tulokset.
Checking the results.
Äänestyksessä annettiin 57
57 votes were given, 35 for and 22 against. The resolution has thus been accepted.
Hyvä. Siirrytään.
Good. Moving to the next part.
Seuraava puheenvuoro.
Then next request.
Onni Nymanilta.
Onni Nyman.
Kampuksen tiloihin.
Pertaining to the Viikki campus. Please, Onni.
Joo, kiitos. Kuuluuko?
Can you hear me?
Niin kuuluuko?
Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you.
Se on hyvä. Hyvä puheenjohtaja, arvoisa edustajista. Viikin kampuksen tilojen puute.
Council, the Viikki campus lack of facilities has been discussed at the REPCO for many times. For the campus students, the situation is very critical in several majorities. About a quarter of the starting folks don't have a clubhouse or a warehouse. It looks like things might get better because the facility MYL have agreed on negotiations for updating the facilities. The worry for community and well-being of students has been taken seriously. Then the will to develop the activities is both double-sided. We wish that this motion gets all the support it gets. This is an important opportunity which might not present itself in the future. Campus areas are very narrow, so getting more facilities is very hard. It's also an acute situation due to the coronavirus, so quick decisions must be made. And also in our medium-term financial plan, we have the following policy, which says that the Viikki and Kumpula facility requirements should be answered also by supporting individual facility projects, which is why you should second this project. The board has said that they will second the motions. I hope that the groups will as well, because
osoitetaan siis tukemme, käytetään tämä mahdollisuus ja parannetaan lukuisten opiskelijoiden hyvinvointia ja yhteisöllisyyttä. Kiitos.
Kiitoksia Onni. Seuraavaksi.
Thank you Onni.
Sami Hasunen Osakunnista.
Sami Hasunen from Osakunnat.
Pyrin pitämään tämän nopeana,
I'll try to keep this brief.
Vuoro ole ehtinyt kellottaa. Puheenjohtaja, hyvä edustajista.
Chairperson,
me kaikki varmasti olla
when we all feel that one of the most important city political goals is the accessibility of student housing, and we need to ensure that each and every student has equal opportunities to study in Helsinki. This is ensured by enabling the fact that everybody can have a reasonably priced apartment. I feel worried of the opportunities, how much HYY can affect HYY's activities. The voice of HYY has been found and heard in HYY, both by our board members, but also the HYY committee. The committee has represented the voice of students in HYY. In the future, this voice will not be heard in HYY's activities, at least not in the same manner or in the same temerity. HYY during the spring has prepared a proposal where they will abolish the committee, have a student forum in lieu of this, two of which will not have any real tasks or any
tai käsittelemistä aiheista, niistä ei ole linjattu mitään.
No policies have been made on the committee whatsoever. If we think of this as a moment in
kahdella tavalla.
foundations, the legislation is based through individuals named by the founders or through their regulations, which is why foundations rarely centralize powers to one deciding organ. The upcoming regulations removes one organ of trust. Also, this removes one option to bring the voice of students forward, with the remaining representatives only being members of the board. After this 3 years, this representation has not brought the student union's mandate to fruition. Also, the fact that this change is in opposition to what whose board seconded last year. Also, the preparation causes questions. Last year, who shut down the previous discussions and wanted to increase the committee's power and find a good function for them. Despite this kind of change has been taken place under the entire spring that is completely opposite to what we decided on. And this committee has been kept in the dark through the entirety of the preparations. When asked, people have just replied that it's not prudent. Now that the situation is prudent, it's only 1 week prior to their spring meet when they were first told about this. The committee was also given a clear message of the fact that their opinion does not matter and it will not be focused on, even though HYY's current rules require that the committee should have a chance to give statements on proposals to change. We should never have situations where representatives are kept in the dark on issues where people want them to have opinions on. We should never have a situation where our members are told that their voices do not matter. None of us have gone into student activities to be treated this way. To the contrary, we should all strive towards hearing the voice of students in every decision making. We should ask, why do we have this update that takes whose mandate to advocate? Why is the preparation made in a way against our wishes? Why is the committee being kept in the dark? Where was real discussion at this time? Good preparation is always a dialogue. Now there has been no dialogue, and that does not spark confidence. If who doesn't have time to advocate for the regulation change now, what means that we would have that opportunity in the future, especially that when we lose the committee? What ensures that we have a mandate in HYY? If the point is to advocate for HYY, the decision should not be based on individual people in the board. And in the end, we hope that who will take seriously the fact how the committee members feel that the process is gone. The worst message we can give is that they are not being listened and their work does not matter. They're not given the opportunity to even do their job properly. I hope that these issues are all discussed in the future. Thank you.
Kiitoksia Samille. Sitten mennään Teemu Kovasen puheenvuoroon.
Teemu Kovanen.
Kiitos puheenjohtaja.
Chairperson.
Haluan valaista teille humanistisen tiedekunnan tämänhetkistä tilannetta.
I want to talk about the humanities. Our basic funding has been going down ever since 2016. The cutbacks struck the Helsinki University and especially the humanities really hard, creating a big deficit. Because currently it's been utilized with financial buffers, but this year the buffers have closed. Our budget will be 1 million less than it should. Helsingin Sanomat did a piece on that arts tasks and other majors were losing professors. In the same article we discussed that about 35% of students in this major has decided to change their major in the future. Arts research is not the only example, but it's one of the good examples of the realities of the humanities. Basic courses cannot be organized, professorates are left empty, and majors are being combined with weird combos. This is a real and a complex problem, which is why I want to ask Hy and Mar co-members to act. It would be better that if the cutbacks would be put on hold until the society normalizes and students have the opportunity to organize themselves. COVID has made organizing into groups very hard. Students are not focusing on what happens inside the university as in normal situations. People do not communicate to one another. It is very important for the students safeguarding that the students have the right to say what they want to say.
Ja niin kauan kun tuo oikeus on vajavainen, yliopiston tulisi pidättäytyä leikkaamasta. Toivon, että Hy painostaisi yliopistoa odottamaan saksien kanssa siihen asti, että
Hy would require the university to wait with the cutbacks until the situation normalizes. Thank you.
Kiitoksia Teemulle. Mä otan tähän
Thank you, Teemu.
Nyt sitten toisen. Eikö tämä olikin totta, se olikin Teemulla oli tästä aina puheenvuoro.
Sorry, Teemu's only request. Then we have Zahra from Osy. Thank you.
Kiitos. Tosiaan haluamme Osyn kanssa vielä nostaa.
Thank you. With Osy we want to focus on
päätöksenteon on oltava mahdollisimman läpinäkyvää ja saavutettavaa Hyn edustajistossa. Tämä siis tarkoittaa sitä, että kaikki informaatio on esitettävä selkokielisesti.
Transparent decisions, which means that all information must be in plain speech and objectively using professional language. Might cut out some representatives because they don't have the required training or expertise to discuss the issues. We are not focusing this on a certain group, but we are not focusing this as a general wish. Looking at this request for floors list that we will talk about Palestine today, like previously. We are not separate from the society, but safeguarding democracy is big and good for all of us.
Kiitos paljon Saralle.
Thank you.
Sitten useampi Palestiina-aiheinen puheenvuoro.
Several Palestine-related speeches.
Ole hyvä, Eugenie.
So Eugenie, your speech.
Yes, I'm sorry for the delay. Something happened with the interpretation. One moment, please. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Chairperson, and dear Representative Council colleagues. The Helsinki University Greens would like to take a moment to specifically talk about Palestine. I would also like to say that this is a personal issue for me. As you can see, I am wearing a kafiyeh, and you cannot see that I'm also wearing my tatris, part of my national dress as a Palestinian. I would like to draw your attention to Palestine and the horrible escalation of violence perpetrated by the Israeli state against Palestinians. Recently, in the East Jerusalem neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah, Palestinian families are facing eviction by settlers. In the Gaza Strip, bombs by the Israeli army have ripped homes and families apart, including many children, as well as an important center for journalism. And nobody, I think, would be silly enough to claim that that wasn't strategic. Mass arrests of Palestinians who are simply resisting and opposing a regime designed to erase their existence. And finally, in the latest horrible turn of the news, the new Israeli prime minister will be a far-right religious nationalist who has on multiple occasions expressed having no issue with killing Palestinians and will never grant any of our land back to our people and will never grant a state. If this is all news to you, or if you think this is just a little escalation, please think again. When the State of Israel was founded in 1948, it was called the Nakba by us Palestinians, or the Great Disaster, and it goes on to this day. 73 years of colonization, apartheid, and ethnic cleansing. 73 years of human rights violations watched but not intervened with by the Western world. I would like to very firmly state, because I can already anticipate these arguments, that this is not a political issue, but a human rights issue that also Finland is not neutral in. As I learned from one of our Edari colleagues, Zahra Alemi, Finland does not recognize Palestine as a state. Finland's media continuously misrepresents events, and Finland contributes to the murder of Palestinians by trading in arms with Israel. As we in Maailmanpyörä and the Helsinki University Greens believe that it is part of HYY's duty as the student union and as a representative of the student academic community to take a stand on matters outside of the university walls, we would like to demand HYY to take a stand on Palestinian rights and hold the Finnish government and itself accountable. And Finland's support of the illegal occupation of Palestinian land, the arms trade, and the continuous violation of Palestinian human rights. And finally, I would like to ask each of you, my fellow representatives, as individuals, to ask yourselves what you can do to help free Palestine from the river to the sea within our lifetime. Thank you. Shukran. Kiitos. Tak.
Thank you, Eugenie. And next, Miikka Karhunen from Edistykselliset and preparing Jenny from Sitvas.
Joo, kiitoksia arvoisa puheenjohtaja, hyvä edustajista.
Thank you, dear representatives. I do understand that the situation in Palestine is stirring up emotions, and I hope that a sustainable solution can be found. If any of you have friends or relatives in the crisis area, I wish you all the best. But I do have 3 points regarding the student union. First of all, our nature in as a public authority. We are considered as a public official. So you can also ask, should the bank or, some ministry take a stand on the Palestine? So we are considered to be an official authority. Youth organizations can take a stand, and whoever feels strongly about this, I wish that people do advocate or make a difference through political organizations. Now, if we weren't an organization like we are, then we could act politically and be in favor of this. And then we can also look at the basic and human rights aspects. In a system where somebody would be against the majority opinion in the student union, then if we would force that person to be a part of the student union, is that right? Then we can also think the administrative legality. So I do apologize for my judicial jargon. But it's not possible that our student union would try to influence the situation in Palestine, because we are not here for that. And then the highest administrative court have said that the municipal or outer foreign policy is not a part of municipal policy or student policy. But anybody who wants to make a difference to one way or another, I encourage you to go to the political youth organizations to take political stands according to your own conviction. And I do hope that the crisis will be eventually solved in a sustainable way.
Seuraavaksi Jenny Karongo Sitvasesta ja valmistautuu Joonas Pulliainen Edistyksellisestä.
And after the next speaker, we will have Johannes from but now Jenny from the Greens.
Kiitos.
Thank you.
Arvoisa puheenjohtaja.
Dear Chairperson and Representative Council, I want to briefly point out that Sitvas is supporting Hyvy, you and Eugenie's point about Palestine. We support the points that were made about the very violent situation, and we hope that who will voice an opinion on the Palestine situation. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jenny. And then Joonas Pulliainen from Edistykselliset. And while Joonas is speaking, I'm expecting the last request for floor for this item, because after that we will be moving on to closing the meeting. Joonas now. Thank you, Chair. Dear Repco. Yeah, this Palestine issue is a difficult question. I mean, my own academic career has been so far concentrating on Israel and their foreign affairs or relationship with the neighboring countries. But I hope that the student union concentrates on their core activities instead of going the foreign policy. I mean, there's a huge number of human rights issues all around the world, and I don't see that it would be appropriate that we pick and choose certain human rights violations. And if I had to choose some, I wouldn't really choose this Israel-Palestine conflict, but there is rather another thing that I would like to get into in foreign policy. But still, I also want to say that I don't want our organization to take any stance in foreign policy. But if we do have to address some problem, then I would address the communism rising from the East. The Republic of China is year by year getting more and more aggressive in violating human rights, and is also doing human rights violations, such as in Taiwan. Which of Taiwan, and is more and more strongly looking for a solution through military means. Another severe human rights violation that could be even called a genocide is the fate of the Uyghur people in Western China. So if we take the road of addressing human rights violation in foreign policy, then I hope that in such situations we would concentrate in problems on a bigger scale, which would be this hostile governance that exists in China and also a few other countries in the world. But hopefully we won't go down that road, because I don't see that foreign policy belongs to the student union. Thank you, Joonas. And there are two more requests for floor. First, Eugenie, and then Mikko Kanerva. And then one more request for floor on other possible issues. After that, no further request for floor will be taken. But Eugenie, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you for giving me the floor. I'm going to do a few quick rebuttals to some things that were said in some speeches, and I'm not going to take care with my tone. First of all, about not picking and choosing human rights issues. Indeed, I agree that we should not, and I agree and I feel that all human rights issues should be important and should be taken a stand on. And I would also like to remind everyone that HYY did feel comfortable taking a stand on Black Lives Matter. And if you have done any reading or research, you know that Black liberation and Palestinian liberation are intertwined. Secondly, about the point that was made that municipal policy does not concern Palestine. Indeed, it does. For instance, there is a promise that is signed by many municipal election candidates about promising their municipalities to not engage with companies that make profit on illegal land. So that's not true. Secondly, the word conflict. It is not a conflict, because a conflict between sides. These are human rights violations. This is occupation, oppression, and 21st century colonialism. So to my final point, difficult, this is not difficult. It is painfully simple. Are you on the right side of history or not?
Eugenie, Mikko Kanerva, next. Chairperson, I'd like to bring a new point of view here that I have under that strong foreign policy statements have seemed to make the situation more strained. I hope that we all feel that the best part of the crisis would be for it to end. Thank you.
Kiitos Mikko ja
Mikko, last request in these items for Nea.
Kiitos.
Thank you. I will say clear that I'm not really sure what I'm going to say, but I feel that I would like to say something. Because I felt like really communal with all of these speeches that then end. We had this broad cast of problems of what we have, what we see, and really important points of view that I would see all of you face to face and get to discuss with you and to decide on what we could do in concrete measures. But human rights questions are not a political discussion. Human rights are basic rights that everything should stem from. But we are kind of the future and we have some sort of voice, and I don't know what we should use this voice for. I feel it very hard to find a thing of what we should use our voice, but other than defending human rights, that might. When we are walking around into the Kaisa library, that might be the biggest personal problem. But somebody has to say something. If human rights need to be safeguarded and defended, and like, who will do it if not students? So I don't know, these thoughts I had like right here. Hopefully I'll see you soon and talk to you. Thank you.
Kiitos paljon Nea ja
Nea.
Kiitos kaikille keskustelijoille tästä kokouksesta. Ja erityisesti tästä.
Thank you for this meeting and thank you for this active discussion.
Joka oli
this meta discussion which was very active, but I will use end item 8, move to decide. Closing meeting at 8:16 and give Sofi Nyssänen to this closing comment. Hello, Sofi Nyssänen from HYY board. I'd like to wish you all welcome to our small meeting after party. We'll start them 10 minutes from here, and I will place a link on chat, and the link can be found, and we can find it on the Representative Council's Facebook page. Well, like a 1 hour little program item where you may get to know your other groups, and then we will put them down, and then we'll have kind of Discord after party if you want to discuss more, but welcome warmly to everybody.
Kiitos paljon Sofi. 2017 kokous on päättynyt.
The meeting has concluded. Thank you.
Kaikille.
Thank you. I will run off to my sauna because I have sauna from 8 to 9.
Yeah,
40 minutes left. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, luckily I have my own sauna in my apartment, so I can warm it up whenever I want. But yeah, enjoy your sauna. And Ville, I will